Hi, everybody. Welcome to Basecamp Photo Club. We're so excited to see all of you friendly faces here today and a lot of new people, new to our club anyway. So welcome to everyone. And if you're catching this on the recording, welcome to you too. We're super happy to have you here today. So for those of you guys that are new, Basecamp Photo Club is a 100% online photography club. We center mostly around nature photography topics, so landscape photography, flower photography, astrophotography, these kinds of things. Every once in a while we veer into another topic, but we like to stay centered around that kind of thing. And today we have a very special guest. So I know a lot of you guys are already fans of Rad Drew, but if you're unfamiliar with him or his work, he is an amazing photographer, both with his big camera and his mobile phone. He has a passion for mobile phone photography, and he'll be talking to us tonight about how to edit our photos, shoot and edit with our mobile phones. So I'm super looking forward to that. Rad is a workshop leader. Maybe you've caught one of his in-person workshops or his online presentations. He is a contributor to PSA Journal. He has his works published in galleries all over the world, and he's also the associate editor of photopixel.com and the app Whisperer. And he is especially well known for his series on how I did it. It's a series of video tutorials, and tonight is a how I did it Lightroom mobile editing presentation. So welcome to Basecamp, Rad.
Thank you, Angel. Thanks for having me. Wow, thanks for being here, everyone. It's great to see so many friends out here. I see Bob Newman, Kim Reynolds, Meg McNamee, Freddie Kelvin. Oh my gosh, just a bunch of people. I can't look at them all. I can't find them all. But thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen here, and Angel, can you confirm that you can see my screen okay and we're doing good?
I see your screen and it's full screen. Looks great.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really excited to be here. I've known Angel, I guess Angel for about I think over a little almost 2 years now because I participated in one of her programs, one of her summits a couple years ago, and so I was delighted that she invited me to be part of this. And I'm going to be working with her on some of her summit programs coming up in May too. So this is kind of a first opportunity. Um, as Angel said, I've been working with an iPhone for a long time. I'm a big camera photographer originally, of course, but in 2009, I got an iPhone and I have enjoyed working with it every year since and just kind of grown up with all of the technological advancements of it to the point where now we have this phone. I mean, if you'd have told me when I first got my iPhone 4 in 2009 that we could do 48 megapixel RAW files and handheld long exposures and things like that, I would have not believed it. And so it's really we've got this tool now. It's so convenient. It's so small. We don't have to carry a lot of gear, and we can do so much with it. I still love my big camera. I'm not giving it up yet, but this phone allows me to do so many things. Um, so what we're going to be talking about tonight is Lightroom Mobile. I've been using Lightroom Mobile since it first was available for the phone. I don't even remember how many years that's been now. Um, and I've only started using Lightroom on the desktop in the last year. So I'm on a learning curve with desktop Lightroom, but the phone, I've been at it for a long time, and I love the advances that have recently come out last fall and into this year. So um, before we get started, I just want to let you know I'm going to get these slides to Angel, and you'll be able to access them. There are links, hot links in here that you can find resources and things like that. So first of all, if you want to contact me, you can find me at all these places. I hope you'll subscribe to my newsletter and check out my workshop schedule and all that good stuff. For those of you who don't know me, I live in Indianapolis. I'm a dad and I'm a grandfather. I have a 3-year-old granddaughter, Maddie, and the family came out for the eclipse. We spent the day yesterday at a local Butler University and photographed that. It's just been, those of you who have grandkids, you know how special that is. It's really fun. I'm married to Nancy Lee. Nancy is a jeweler and a metalsmith. She's been creating wearable art for 20 years and just a great inspiration to me, from an artistic standpoint. The things she does just blow my mind. And this is a link, you can go out and see the kinds of things she does. Um, I enjoy creative writing almost as much as photography, and I've been working on a book for, gosh, it seems like forever, and it just keeps getting put to the back burner. But it's a book where I've taken photographs and used them as writing prompts, and I've written little short vignettes to go with the story. Some are funny, some of them are kind of nostalgic. And I have well, Sharon Gardner, who's on the workshop or the webinar tonight, is a skilled at layout and design. I forget what you call it, but she's going to help me put all this stuff together using all the right software. So I'm excited about that. I got my start in photojournalism. I got a degree from Indiana University years ago, and I worked in journalism for a while. And then I went back and got my master's in education. And at that point, I left professional photography and I went into the corporate world. And I worked for Eli Lilly here in Indianapolis for more than 30 years. I didn't have photography wasn't part of my job, but I always had a camera. I mean, I was always doing photography. And then in 2010, I got my first iPhone, and it really brought me back to photography in a fun way. And since then, I haven't looked back. It's been a great run since 2010. I've been leading groups around the world to different locations. Just got back from Calabria. I'm heading over to Tuscany here in a couple of weeks, going out to Cape Cod next week and the Palouse. And I go to Cuba regularly. I've been down there about 2 times a year since 2014. So I just love, excuse me, the travel and the people I've met. Many of you online tonight have traveled with me, and we've had just a great time. Mostly, I just love being out with my camera, and whether it's my big camera or my iPhone, and then working with those images in post-processing in a digital darkroom. So what we're going to look at today, the Lightroom app. I was surprised to hear from some people last time I did this workshop that they didn't know Lightroom, the app had cameras in it. Well, it does. It has 3 really good cameras that let us do raw photos and things like that. So we'll be looking at those 3 cameras. And then I think it's the best raw editor that we have available to us today for mobile photography, or to be mobile with our editing. You can use Lightroom Mobile with big camera images as well. So I'm going to share with you a raw workflow that I've been using for a while. And some of you know too that, and you're doing it. We've been doing infrared photography with the iPhone. I started with the iPhone 11 exploring how to make this work. And we've been through a lot of different approaches, but one of the things that has been a constant in that is the editing of these files in Lightroom. I think it's the best tool we have for fine-tuning our mobile infrared images. So I'll demonstrate at least one of those tonight. And then we'll just look at the other tools. I love the color management tool that's part of Lightroom that lets you selectively adjust individual colors in an image. And then the masking tool, which was overhauled a little bit or got some changes made last year around the end of the year. And it is an absolutely amazing tool for editing just selective parts of your image. And it gives you so much creative control to do great things with your images. It's just really fun. Lightroom is not a free app, but it comes with the Creative Cloud. So if you subscribe to get Lightroom and Photoshop on your desktop, you're already paying for the mobile version. You just have to go install it from the Play Store or the App Store. There is a free version, but honestly, you can still photograph in RAW and you can still use a lot of the tools, but you'll be missing the 2 tools that are really valuable. The geometry tool and the masking tool are not part of the free version. So try it out if you want, but I think if you really want to get into it, you can get the Creative Cloud subscription for about $10 a month, and that includes the desktop software as well. And I mentioned, infrared. If you're interested in infrared, I'm going to just touch on it briefly tonight. There are 2 different options for the accessories that we use. You have to have a way to attach a filter to your camera. And it's been a journey trying to figure out what works best. And we've landed on 2 things now that I'm using and advocating, and I'll look at those. You can use any of the Lightroom cameras to photograph infrared photography. You just have to follow some other guidelines. And the masking feature is perfect for fine-tuning those highlights and darks in an infrared photo. If you're interested, this is a link out to a Facebook group that we have about 1,500 people in there now exploring infrared, and you'll find a range of work. Some people have been at it a long time and are producing really fine work. Others are starting out and exploring, but it's a great place to network, meet other people doing this. Everybody shares what they're doing. The other thing I like about Lightroom Mobile is that it's a great camera if you, it's a great app if you don't have the latest phones. So if you don't have an Android that shoots RAW, or you don't have an iPhone that you can do Pro RAW, you can still use the Lightroom cameras to produce RAW files. So you can still get the benefit of a RAW file and RAW processing, even if your camera is an earlier generation. Um, so again, I think photographing in RAW, you're probably doing that with your big camera already, and you understand that you just get more data to work with. It's not already compressed, so you get to make a lot of the decisions about how your work is going to look in the end. So I think it's just an all-round better way to go, and produces a higher, yields a higher result. What I'm showing you right now, again, you're going to have these slides and these steps. We're going to go through this, but this is a basic outline of my raw mobile process. And so you'll have this list and also my infrared process, which is basically the same, except we start with a conversion step because you have that infrared file. It's usually a magenta color, and you want to convert that to black and white and work with it from there. So these will be in your slides, and you'll have these as a kind of a job aid, if you will, when you get started. So I'd like to show some examples, and the examples I'm going to show you here come from a variety of phones over several years. And I was intentional about that because I want you to see you don't have to have the latest and greatest iPhone or Android to do this kind of work. This is a photo. I love photographing barns in my home state of Indiana. This was a barn I photographed last year. Um, I really like working with this kind of subject. And this was an overcast day, so it was like a giant light box. And working with this photo in Lightroom, I was able to work with these colors in the edge of the barn, just lift them a little bit, match the tones here with the gray sky. And I love this kind of image. And Lightroom made it really fun to work on it. Using selective editing, I brought out some of the detail in this little kind of almost wreath-like growth here coming down around the image. So just a lot of different ways to impact the final result. This is a photo from southern Italy, a region called Calabria. It's a little town, a medieval village called Badolato. I was there in October, and I really enjoyed working with this colorful image and using the color management tool, and then also masking to work with these individual colors. I mean, I love that you can take a color and just process that color to bring it to where you want it to be. This is an older image, and I'm showing you this because I really want to point out this is not a RAW file. It was probably done, I'm going to guess it was a 10S. But I wanted to show you because this is a really high contrast photo. And it's often difficult to photograph a high contrast image like this and preserve those details in the whites. I mean, even if in the areas in here and in the snow, um, with Lightroom and using the tools there, I was able to make this image hold together in ways that I might not have been able to do, even though it wasn't a RAW file. So that's kind of why I wanted to show this one. This was taken in the south of France. And again, that color management tool in Lightroom, what I love about it, and you can do this now with masking too, which is a more recent thing, but you can go in and select this color red and just work with that color, or this color orange or yellow, and just work with that color in the image, or this blue or this purple or whatever. So it's like you're working with those colors. It's like, I don't know, it feels like painting almost, like you're pulling in color into different parts of the image and controlling how you want it to look. I just think it's a lot of fun. This is an infrared image made with a iPhone 12 Pro Max and an app called Camera Plus Pro Camera and Editor. I just love that we're able to do this with an iPhone. I love infrared photography. I've got a couple of big cameras that are converted to 720 nanometer, but to do this with an iPhone is really a pleasure. And what I love about this is all green foliage in the spring down in near Atlanta, and all of these green, you're able to pull the whites all the way up just to the point of before they start to blow out, and then you've got these chocolate darks that you can pull in, and the bridge. I just love working with this kind of thing, and to be able to do this on an iPhone is just fabulous. Another example, this is in Great Smoky Mountains, same thing, 30-second exposure on a tripod, and then pulling those details out in Lightroom. This is a scene from southern Indiana, not far from where I live. And again, what I loved about processing this in Lightroom was that I was able to go in here and find these colors, these reds, and work with those, and then these oranges, and work with those, and these subtle greens, and work with those individually to bring them to the surface of the image in a way that kind of collaborates with everything else. And I just have a blast doing that. I think it's really fun. I think the results look good. These print beautifully. It's just really fun. This is one of my favorite places to photograph in Indianapolis. This is Crown Hill Cemetery. If you're ever in Indianapolis, I encourage you to check it out. Call me if you're coming to town, and we'll go do it together. Um, I love this photograph for the subtlety and the colors, and being able to work with these almost pastels that were there in the headstones and in the church, and then that soft, almost Maxfield Parrish kind of sky thing going on. And again, a lot of that was influenced by Lightroom processing. This is an image where this couple we photographed at the gardens in Atlanta, and I dropped the back in Lightroom, selected them as the subject, then um, and then inverted that so that I'm actually working with this part of the background. Drop everything down to nothing, to where there's no exposure value or light value, and you have this really figural image coming off the page of this beautiful couple. It's a great way to do a portrait. This was out in the Palouse. I've been photographing out there since, gosh, 2014 or so. In fact, I've got one spot left in June if anybody wants to join. Um, it's a great place to photograph. Most of the Palouse looks like this area up here, vast fields of rolling hills of wheat. So this is kind of an unusual area of the Palouse, and I really love this scene with the curving river. And so I took this into Snapseed, and the original file as a raw file, it looked okay, but it was flat, and it just didn't have the pop and the detail. But using masking in Snapseed, selecting for some of these areas here, bring up the textures a little bit, find detail in this area that was almost blown out in the original, but the data is there because it was a raw file. So working with that, and I love it for landscapes like this and that kind of detail. So those are just some examples of what can be done with this tool and what I love about it. The rest of these are slides. I hope you look at these. I do have a spot coming up in Cape Cod. That's next week. So that's a fun workshop. Got one spot left. Palouse coming up in June. One spot in Tuscany in May. And then I've got a spot in my Cuba trip in November. So, and then this is a Cuba trip and a Calabria trip. So check those out on your own. These are some other resources that you'll find. I have a YouTube channel, and Angel mentioned my How I Did It series, so you'll find some of those little snippets of how to do something in a video on YouTube. So check those out if you want. I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring. We basically decide what it is you need to you want to learn, and if it's in my wheelhouse, we'll create a curriculum that will get you where you want to go. So those are some things. Here's again a link to that Facebook group on infrared if you're interested, and an article from the PSA Journal that I wrote last year. I think it was last year, maybe it was the first of this year, on iPhone infrared. So those are some things. Oh, and I did want to mention this. Jackie Kramer turned me on to the Lightroom Queen. I know many of you know Jackie. Jackie has presented here with Angel before too in the base camp, and wonderful photographer. And Jackie she's a Lightroom master on the desktop as well. And she turned me on to this because I mentioned I'm new to Lightroom on the desktop, so I'm on a learning curve there. And the Lightroom Queen is a resource. I bought two of their books. They're electronic, so you can search them online in like PDF files. But it's not very expensive. But you get a membership into their organization, and you if you get stuck on something, if you can't find it in the book, you can pick up the phone and call Victoria, or not the phone, but send an email to Paul or Victoria, and they bailed me out more than I can tell you. So I wanted to mention it. It's a good deal. If it's something you're looking for some support for, check it out. Um, and then I wanted to mention also um, a product from Topaz. You know, we're working with these small iPhone files relative to our big camera, small sensor. And Topaz has produced the products over the years, Denoise AI, Gigapixel AI. Well, they've now got Photo AI, which is a desktop software, but it can take an image that maybe is lower resolution because it's iPhone or because you've cropped into it. Maybe it's from an earlier iPhone, and you can run it through this software, and you will be amazed at how good it will look with at a larger size, with the noise reduced and the resolution increased. Now, full disclosure, I've been an affiliate for them for I think 8 years, and but I use this software every day. But if you do go out and follow this link and look at it and you make a purchase, I do make a commission. So I just want to be upfront about that. But I use this software every day, especially for my smaller phone images. The other thing, if you're interested in infrared, it's pretty basic. There are two different ways to do this, and you get a mount from Moment, you get a filter from wherever, and you put it over your case, and that's how you attach it. That's one method, and there's a blog that goes into a lot more detail about that. And then these are links that'll take you out. If you're interested in getting those things, you can go right out there and purchase them. This is a new option that I just learned about maybe 5 weeks ago, from a company called JJC, I think. This is magnetic. Whoops. This is magnetic, so it works with those MagSafe phones. Um, and this is a 49 millimeter opening. So you either get a 49 millimeter infrared filter, or you do what I did. I already had a 67 millimeter filter, so I bought a step-up ring for a few bucks instead of buying an expensive new filter. And you just screw this into here, and then this into here, and this is what it looks like when it's done. It's magnetic, so it comes on and off really easy and makes infrared photography very easy to manage. There's a blog post that goes into more detail about that. So those are just a couple things. There's the links to get all that stuff if you want. And then these are just other things we've already talked about, links to my stuff. So check all this stuff out on your own. I'll make sure that Angel has these slides, and you can check those things out. So what I want to do now, I'm going to share my phone. And I don't know if there are any questions while I'm making the switch here. I'm going to stop sharing my desktop and share my iPhone. If there are, I'm happy to take them. And if not, that's fine too.
There are a couple of questions in the chat, but you may be fixing to cover this. So, oh, where'd it go? All right, it says, one person wants to know, will Rad cover transfer of file from iPhone to Lightroom on a MacBook?
On a MacBook. Okay, that's a really good question. And I'm glad we got that question asked right away. There are lots of different ways to do this. There are lots of ways to sync with your Lightroom Classic on your desktop. I am not going to go into that. What I will show you how to do is how to move images from your mobile phone camera roll into Lightroom. So import them into Lightroom Mobile, and then we'll focus mainly on the operation of the software. There are a lot of different ways to access the files from your phone, and everybody seems to be set up differently. And it would take a whole nother workshop to cover how to do that. But I will show you how to move them from your camera roll. Let's say you've made a photo with your native camera, which many of us do now, because that native camera on our iPhone or Android lets us create a great RAW file. But you want to process it in Lightroom. I will show you how to move that into Lightroom and work with it, and then move it back to your camera roll where you might do other things with it. So does that answer your question? All right. Anything else, Angela? Angel?
Uh,
Sorry, I keep.
yeah. So the other one is, can we see a histogram during capture or processing in Lightroom Mobile? And what about alternative apps that have a histogram?
There is a histogram, and we'll look at that in that you can see when you're processing. I'm trying to remember. We'll look at the cameras in a minute. I can't remember if there's a histogram when you're shooting. I don't think there is, but there is a histogram that will help you when you're processing your raw files. Other tools that have a histogram, Snapseed has a histogram. If you use that on for mobile processing, which is an excellent editor. It's not a very good raw editor, in my opinion, but it's great for lots of other things. And there are other tools that have histograms. I can't think of any right off the top of my head, um, but we'll look at those in
Okay.
Lightroom.
And Gregory said thank you. It did answer his question. And then there was just one more, and somebody wanted to know, will there be details of how he makes these edits?
How I made what?
How you make the edits, like the ones you were showing.
Yes. So that list that I showed you of those steps, we're going to actually do some processing. That's what we're about to get into. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to be sharing with you my phone screen, and we're going to look at two things. We're going to look first at the Lightroom mobile, the cameras that you can use. So there's an automatic, a professional, and an HDR camera. Excellent. And they produce raw files. We'll look at that first. Once we get through that, then we're going to take a look at some examples, and I'll walk you through the process for editing raw files using those steps that were in the slides. And we'll do some color raw, and we'll also do some infrared. So I know there are some of the people that are in the group tonight are from our Facebook site and our infrared site. So I know many of them may have interest in seeing some of that processing with Lightroom. So we'll cover both of those things. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I think everyone's just excited.
Okay. All right. Well, I am going to bring keep that up there where I can see it. Okay. So notice on my phone, what I'm going to do is just start by opening Lightroom. So I have Lightroom, the app, just on my homepage of my phone. It's right here, right next to Snapseed and a few other things I use regularly. So I'm simply going to tap on this to open it up. When I do, let's see where it takes me. Okay, so it's taking me, where it will take you is wherever you were working last. So I have a album that I created for us tonight that has these photos in it that we're going to use to work with. Um, if I tap on this arrow, this little caret here, it takes me back. These are some of the other albums there's a Lightroom. When you take a photograph with the Lightroom camera, it goes into this album. There are imports and so on. These are albums that I've created, like this one right here that has the photos that we'll work with tonight. I'm going to go to imports here just to go to a folder or an album rather. And when I do, you'll notice at the bottom, there's a blue capsule. And you can be in any one of these albums. It doesn't have to be the import album, but you'll see a blue capsule at the bottom. If you're not in one of the albums, you may not see this, but you'll see the blue capsule. And what I want to do is tap on the camera icon. And when I do, it takes us into the camera. And I've got my camera pointing here at my desktop where I've got some little toys and things that we'll photograph as part of what we work on tonight. So what I want to do is just walk around the interface of this camera. And these cameras they're great for any color photography that you do, landscape or whatever. And they're also, I use these cameras for infrared photography as well. So the first thing I'll mention, notice we're in the camera interface right now. And if I wanted to leave the camera, there's an X up here in the left. If I tap on that X, it takes me back to the albums. To go back to the camera, I'm just going to tap on the camera icon down in the lower right, and it takes us back into here. The next thing that you see here is a flash icon. You notice mine is off. If I tap on it, I can either turn it to be auto, so if it's dark, it'll flash, or I can turn it to be on all the time, or as I have it, off all the time. I don't use the flash on the iPhone because it's one harsh blast. There are two reasons. It's one harsh blast that you can't really control. and it's right on the camera directly straight ahead at the subject. Usually if I do flash, I have my flash at a 45-degree angle or whatever with my big camera. So I don't find much, I don't get much quality out of this. However, there is a photograph in the images that we're going to review after this workshop tonight or this webinar, and somebody has used, I think, flash, and I am dying to I hope that person's online tonight because I really want to question them about how they achieved this great photo that they did. So as a rule, I just don't use it. So to turn it off, I'm just going to tap on the icon and it puts that away. The next thing you see here, mine says DNG. It's a little button. Yours might say JPEG, but if I tap on it, it's a switch. You can toggle between DNG, which is Adobe's raw file, or JPEG. I rarely shoot JPEG with Lightroom. I want the raw file. That's part of the reason I use these cameras. So I'm going to switch this to DNG. And remember, if you have an older iPhone, you can use this and still get a raw file, even if you don't have Pro RAW or the ability to shoot RAW with your Android phone. You can do that here. So you don't have to miss out on that benefit. So I'm going to just tap up here to put that away. This is the scary button. This is one you don't ever want to do. This is the selfie camera. So I avoid that at all costs, pretty much. This ellipsis right here, if I tap on the ellipsis, it brings up a menu of items here that you can control. This right here is your aspect ratio. It's the default is 4:3 for our mobile phones. If you tap on that, it brings up, let me see if I can turn this a little bit. It brings up a menu. You can choose from 4 different aspect ratios. So you can choose 16:9 or a square or whatever. The default is 4:3, but if I change it to 16:9, the only reason I do this is if I'm really trying to compose a landscape shot and I want to see in that aspect ratio. It's a raw file. So even if you wanted to change it back to the default of 4:3, you're always going to be able to do that. You're not locked into that aspect ratio, but you can do that for composition purposes. The next thing here is a timer. We've all used the timer to get in the picture at Thanksgiving. You know, you set the timer and run around, get in front of the camera. But the other time that I use this a lot is if I'm doing macro photography and I have my camera on a tripod. You can use a remote shutter button, but if you don't have one, this is a great alternative. You set your timer for 2 to 5 seconds and then tap your shutter button, and any motion you introduce when you touch the camera dissipates by the time the shutter fires. So I use it for that quite frequently. The next thing that you see is this grid, and it's a composition grid. So right now, if you look at my screen, I have the rule of thirds grid up. That's the one I find that useful for composing things. But you can also, you can tap on that and, whoops, and say I just turned it off. But I can have a 4x4. I can have that composition, the rule of thirds. There's even a Fibonacci grid here. And the other thing I like to do, it keeps timing out on us. The other thing I like to do is turn on the level. So the level, it's in the yellow indicates that those two things are selected. And when I move the phone sideways, you can see the level in the center there. And when it's level, the whole line across the center turns yellow. So it's a great, it's just helpful with whatever you're photographing, whether it's a landscape or anything, you can ensure that you can get your photos level. The next thing that you see up here is this triangle. And if I tap on that, watch, there's a message. It's going to flash on the screen right here where my arrow's pointing. So I'm going to tap that button, hide highlight clipping, it said. So highlight clipping is it's going to show you where you're overexposing your image, where things are too bright. If I tap on that again, it's going to say show highlight clippings. So before I do this, I want to mention there's something wrong with this right now, and I don't know what it is. I know there was an iOS update about 2 days ago, and I think there's a problem that was introduced. Normally, if highlight clippings is on, when I take my finger and slide to the right and brighten the screen, these areas should be showing Um, Zebra marks. If I take it down, they're not really showing. They're faint. I can see them faintly on my phone, but they're not showing up the way they should. You can see them a little bit in here. Those should show up very bright or very prominent to show you where those bright areas are blowing out. You can see them moving here a little bit and over here. Pardon me. Um, but I'm not sure what's going on with that. I think it has to do with this recent iOS update. Those can be really useful when you're trying to get your exposure accurate or a good, not blowing things out or crushing your blacks. The next icon you see up here is this gear. And if I tap on the gear, there are several things here. I turn these two things on. I like to have my screen as bright as it can be, especially when I'm outdoors photographing in a bright day. And then I like to have the metadata that tells me where my photo was made so I can get back to that barn out in the middle of nowhere. So I like to have those things turned on. The other thing that's here, one of the cameras that we have down here that we can choose is a high dynamic range, an HDR camera. So HDR, as you guys know, it's going to take several photographs with different exposures. So if you've got a bright sky and a dark mountain, it's going to take multiple HDR photographs and combine those into one image that's well exposed across that dynamic range. Well, that compilation, usually it turns out great and it's very forgiving to be handheld. But sometimes if you move while it's taking all those photographs or whatever, you can end up with a blurry result. So I turn on save one of the unprocessed originals. That means when you take a HDR shot, two are going to show up in your, in your album. One is going to be the HDR compilation, and the other is going to be simply one of those images that's not part of the compilation. So it's kind of a way of hedging your bets. So I turned all three of those on. So those are the settings. The other thing, if you come down here, we're in the auto camera right now. And if I tap on that, I can choose between automatic, a professional camera, or the HDR camera. I will tell you right now, I probably use the automatic camera more than anything else. Now, contrast that to my big camera. When I'm photographing with my Nikon or my Fuji, I shoot manual. I want to control all of those variables, ISO, shutter speed, all those things. With the phone, not so much. I don't necessarily need to. It does such a nice job. I often use automatic more than some of the other options that I have. If you want more control, we'll look at this in a second. You have it, and then you have the HDR option. So a couple of things about when you're setting up your shot for HDR. When you're in automatic mode, you can tap for a focal point, and you see the little box shows up there. If you have, let me just move this. You have something in the foreground, and you tap on the foreground, it's going to focus down here. If you look back here, this stuff is a little bit soft, but this is sharp. So you can control some of that. Now, if you're out shooting a landscape or something that's far away, these lenses are so wide that nearly everything is going to be in focus. But when you're in here, or if you're photographing something really close to the camera with something far away, you can create a shallow depth of field, as we've done here. If I tap back here on the mask in the background, now this one's soft and this one is a little bit is more in focus. So you can control some of that. The other thing you're going to do, so in addition to tapping for focus, it's not unlike other cameras that we use on the phone, but then you're going to take your finger and you can drag down your exposure value, and just by dragging down one way or the other, and you can actually go 3 stops to the left and three stops to the negative and 3 stops to the positive. And then you see it's very blown out. Now we should be getting those zebra marks right there, and we're not for some reason. So those are two things. The other thing that I wanted to mention here, and this is true also of other cameras that you might use, like your native camera on the iPhone or Android. If you take 2 fingers and pinch to zoom, which is so tempting to do. If I do this, I have just degraded the quality of my photo. I've gone from an optical zoom, which is using the glass, the lens is built into the camera, to a digital zoom, which is just blowing up the pixels. And so you end up with an image that looks fine on the internet, but you try and print it or anything, and it's not going to look very good. Now, sometimes you can recover that with photo AI or something like that that will increase the resolution. But avoid doing that if you can. If you need to get close to something, use the lenses that come with the camera. So on the Lightroom camera here, I have the 15 Pro Max. So right now I'm on the wide angle lens, which is the, I think 20, what is it, 26. If I tap again, it takes me to the ultra wide, which is a 13 millimeter. And then if I tap again, it's going to take me to and on this camera, it's 120 millimeters. I'm almost too close to focus on anything here. It needs to be further away. So my point is, if you can, either zoom with your feet by walking closer to your subject, or use only the lenses that are programmed into the phone. As soon as you take those fingers and pinch, you're degrading the quality of your image. So those are some basic things. And that's true for any of the cameras we talk about here. It's true for the native camera. So if we come down here, one other thing I'll mention, sometimes, let's say I like to shoot black and white, and I often choose a scene and know that, hey, I'm going to create this in black and white. Well, you can always convert a color photo to a black and white after the fact, but sometimes it's helpful to see in black and white. So when you're composing your photo in a way that you can see in black and white. If you come down here to this little Venn diagram down here, tap on that, it's going to bring up, these are filters that you can apply. These are color ones, and it just changes the tone that you see. But then there are two black and white ones here. There's that one, the flat black and white, and I prefer the high contrast black and white. I like to turn that on when I know I'm photographing in black and white and when I'm doing infrared. When you have that infrared filter over the camera, you see everything in red, and it can be challenging to compose your image. But if you set it to this, you can see in black and white. You're not locking yourself into a black and white photo. You can always change that back to any of these other filters or no filter at all after you've taken the photograph. So you're not locking yourself into anything. It's just a way to see better. Okay, so auto, I said I use most of the time, but let's say you do want to control things. You want to have more control over focus, over shutter speed, all that. The professional camera is made to do that. So you've got adjustments for shutter speed, ISO, and exposure. And the f-stop on these cameras is locked in. I mean, you can't adjust that, but you can adjust these other variables. You have an exposure slider here. If I tap on that, it puts a slider up. You don't have to use the slider. You can just drag your finger across the screen. The only difference really here is that it's showing you a gauge, and you can see where you are on that spectrum if you record that for any reason or want to get back to that setting or whatever. So the next thing is your shutter speed. If you slide down to this end, it's going to automatically decide what to do. If you want to change that, you're just going to bring it up, and you can set it to, it's going to tell you under this right here in yellow what your shutter speed is. So that's 1/100th of a second. And you can go all the way up to a full second, which in this case is going to blow things out. You'd have to be in a pretty low light situation for that to work, or drop your ISO all the way down, which still probably isn't going to go low enough. I mean, it's that dynamism of the exposure triangle, but you have the ability to work with some of this. The thing that I like the most about this is it has focus peaking. So if I come over to focus here and I tap on auto, it's going to let me tap for focus. It's going to let me bring that down. But if I grab the slider and bring it up, you see the green showing up? It's allowing me to see what's in focus. So right there, that mask is about as in focus as it's going to get. If I keep going, I can bring other parts of the scene into focus based on where the the green is showing up. So now the mask back here is more in focus than the foreground. I like to be able to adjust that sometimes for some images. The other thing that you can do here, and let me just move this back to auto for a second. The other thing that you can do here is set your white balance. So the white balance icon is right here. I meant to do this to 0. There we go. The white balance icon is right here. And when I tap on it, it allows me to choose some presets. So tungsten, fluorescent light, sunlight, clouds, and so on. If you're photographing food, or if you're shooting in infrared, setting the white balance can be beneficial. So it can help you get the color of your food the right color. I mean, lettuce that's not the right color green isn't very appetizing. So um, being able to get closer to that real color, you can you can do that by using this eyedropper. If you're shooting infrared, well, let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to tap on the eyedropper and it brings a box up and it tells me to fill it with a neutral surface. If I'm shooting infrared, I'm going to find a patch of leafy green tree or a patch of light green grass. And I'm going to take my phone and I'm just going to move it down to that spot. And I'm just going to tap that check mark. And when I do, it's locked in my light balance for that scene, for that light. Um, you can always adjust this somewhat in your post-processing because it's a raw file, but it can help you get a lot closer by using the white balance. And it's really nice for infrared because it helps you see a little bit better when you're composing and things like that. So those are the things that I like about the Pro camera, but I probably use it less than the other two. The other one that I do like a lot, and I use this not only for high contrast landscape scenes, but I use it for infrared as well. So this is the camera that's going to take multiple exposures or multiple photographs at different exposures, and then combine all of those into one image that's going to have a balanced exposure across the highlights and the darks. And so if we were to just set this up here and my light a little bit, and I'm going to get my focus here, and I'm going to focus on that mask in the foreground, and the background is soft, but I've got a nice focus on the mask here, and I'm going to go ahead and take the photograph. Actually, let me reset this because I think I had the white balance off. Yeah, there we go. I had it kind of wacky. So I'm going to go back, go back to auto, and I'm going to dial that focus in on the mask. And I'm going to go ahead and take my shot. Now I could also go to exposure and I could maybe darken that down a little bit, kind of play with that. So now I'm ready to take my shot. I'm going to go ahead and tap the shutter button. And there's our image. Now let's go out and look at what it puts in the camera roll. So remember a minute ago, we were looking at these settings up here and I recommended selecting this. So when we go and look in the camera roll, I'm going to leave the camera by tapping the X. And this time, instead of being in imports, we just took this with the mobile cameras, with the Lightroom camera. So I'm going to go to Lightroom Photos. And these are the two photos that I just took. Notice I took one photo, but notice it saved the HDR version and it saved one of the DNG files that went into compiling to make up that composite or that compilation. So it's again a way of hedging your bets. If I had moved the camera drastically while this was taking the photographs that went into that compilation, it could be soft, but this one could be okay. So if I tap on this image, I can take a look at it. Now, just a little bit more here. Notice I'm seeing a histogram. Someone was asking about this before. We are now in the editor, and I'm seeing a histogram here. And we'll come back to this in a second, but to see that, you have to come up to this ellipsis here, tap on that, and you want to choose View Options, and then select Show Overlays. Make sure that's turned on. When you do, you see the histogram. And the cool thing about this is I can take two fingers on the screen and I can tap, whoops, sorry. I can tap two fingers and it turns the histogram off. If I tap two fingers again, now I can see the metadata. And if I look at the metadata here, it's telling me this is both an HDR and a DNG file. So it's taken a bunch of DNG photographs, files, and combined them to create this HDR result. If this was soft or blurry, if I were to swipe to the next photograph, this one was made at the same time, but it is just a DNG. It's one of the images that went into that compilation. If you look at them, they're not all that different in this lighting. But if we were out with a landscape with a bright sunny sky and a dark forest and mountain and stuff, you'd see a difference in those two images. But this one, if the HDR file isn't what you hoped, this one may be salvageable. So it's a way, like I said before, hedging your bets. So let's go back to the camera. So those are the main things on the HDR camera as well. You can also set white balance on this camera. You have the ability to do the focus the way we using focus peaking. If you want to reset anything, you're just going to tap reset and it's going to reset all of those values. I mean, that's it as far as what these cameras do. They used to have, those of you who've been using this a while will remember this, they used to have a long exposure camera. And for reasons only Adobe knows, they removed it from this menu last June, a year ago. There are rumors that it's coming back. What was nice about it was it allowed you to hand hold the camera and it would shoot for a 5-second period, not a 5-second exposure because it's taking a whole bunch of short exposures, but it's going to shoot for 5 seconds. And so you could hand hold and get beautiful photographs in raw format of waterfalls and things like that. So it was very similar to live mode in the native camera on our iPhone, but it was a raw result, which the iPhone doesn't provide. So hopefully that'll come back. I've heard rumors that it is, but we'll see. So
Rad, we have several questions. Sorry,
yeah,
we have several questions in the chat, and I think that some of them are kind of time sensitive. So maybe we'll jump in if that's okay.
yeah.
Okay. So, first person wants to know, does Rad typically use the Lightroom camera or the native camera on his iPhone?
Well, I use both. I use the Lightroom native camera quite a bit these days because it is so good. Once I take that photo in the native camera, I move it into Lightroom for processing in Lightroom Mobile. And I'll show you in a minute how I do that and what to look for and avoid.
Okay, so then someone wanted to know if there was a macro feature, but I know we can get that in our native camera.
Yeah, there is no macro feature in Lightroom at this point. But you have a macro feature on the 13, 14, and 15 iPhone. They have macro control built in. You have to go into your settings to turn it on. And once it's on in your phone settings, it will show a little switch on your camera interface that you can toggle macro on and off. And that's an important thing to have turned on in your camera settings because you want to turn it off when you are doing infrared, for example. When you have a filter over your lenses, you don't want macro mode activated because it will have trouble focusing on your subject. It'll try and focus on the filter over the camera.
Okay,
The
and
other,
then
the
someone,
other, the other
oh, go
camera
ahead.
app that's really good for macro is Camera Plus Pro Camera and Editor. It's iPhone only, but it has an amazing macro feature. I still use it with my 15, even though I have macro control in the native camera, and it is an extraordinary camera.
It was camera, what's it called? Camera
It's called
Plus.
Camera Plus Pro Camera and Editor.
Okay, writing that down for myself too. Okay, somebody wants to know when shooting infrared and setting white balance, do you set the white balance with the filter on or off?
On. You want to put the filter on and then set your white balance.
Okay, and then another infrared question. With infrared, are you using the eyedropper and getting a white balance reading on something green, like in a DSLR or mirrorless?
Well, so it's really different. And honestly, I shoot with a Nikon, or I mean a Fuji converted to 720 nanometer. That's my big camera. And I've talked with a bunch of different people about this, and I don't always set the white balance when I'm shooting infrared. And what I found with the iPhone, which is it's different process than the big camera because we're using a filter. We haven't converted anything inside the camera. Um, you can set the white balance, but it doesn't really affect the outcome of the infrared image. It only helps you during composition when you're viewing the image through your camera, but it has very little effect on the final result of your infrared image, which is I don't understand exactly technically why that is, but that's been my experience.
Okay, and then last question. My storage just got blown out. Where is the setting for Lightroom storage choices?
Oh, Lightroom storage choices. Let me go back here. I don't know if I can answer this, Angel. So
Maybe on the when you showed the cloud up there, there's things there for cloud storage. And then
I'm sorry, the
there's
cloud. Yeah. Well, so
if you go on that settings thing, there's a few settings under there. That might be what we're looking for.
oops.
Like on the cloud, and then where it said sync.
I'm sorry, I don't know where you're going here.
Oh, up there next to that bell, there's a cloud on
Yeah,
the top.
yeah. And when I
And
tap the
then
cloud, that's what I see.
yeah, and then right there where it says pause syncing, but over there there's that wheel. If you tap on that, there's a couple of storage settings. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah.
what we need.
Yeah. So thank you. Yes. This is cloud storage and sync. So and I've purchased extra storage space. I think it comes with, I forget how much, not a lot, but enough. But I purchased more because I use this so much. But so I don't know if this is what you were looking for, if this is helpful to the person who asked the question.
I'm not sure. Let me check the
Okay.
chat and see if she said anything else. Um, that was Melina. Okay, she said, okay, this just happened when I started using Lightroom for iPhone just now. And
I'm
then
not,
she said,
I
go
don't,
back. How
it's
did
hard
you
to
get to
know
that
what's
photo? Yeah. Okay, so maybe when we do question and answer, Melina could unmute herself and you guys could have a little conversation. But we can let you go ahead and continue from here.
okay. No other question at this point?
Uh,
All right. Well, that's
oh, she said
that,
she tapped the cloud and then what? So if you tap the cloud and then on the place where it says um syncing or resume syncing, if you hit that settings wheel next to it, the it pulls up this menu that Rad has up right now,
yeah.
and then you can kind of navigate some things from there. She said, okay, thanks. So she's got me.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good.
Thanks, Rod.
Um, so what I'm going to do, we just looked at the cameras within Lightroom, and all of those photos that we just took in the Lightroom camera are going to be in Lightroom already. So if we wanted to edit them, we could open them up and begin to edit them here. But what if you've taken a photo on your native camera using the Pro RAW on the 14 or 15 or 13 or whatever? Well, here's what I do with that. So I'm going to go out right now and I'm going to open the native camera on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. This one right here. I'll tap it, open it up, and I'm just going to switch to 2x. And let me do this. Let me pull this over here a little closer. And let's just work with that. And I'm going to tap for focus. I'm going to drop my exposure down, make it a little more dramatic with this lighting in here. And I've got my camera set to photograph in RAW. So if you don't see this, if you have a 12, 13, or 14 and you don't see a switch for RAW, it means you haven't turned on RAW in your camera settings. Kind of another topic. But if it's on, you can tap to turn it on. If I tap here up the top, I can turn it off also. But I want to make a RAW photo, which is normally what I shoot in these days. And so I'm going to go ahead and make this photograph. Got everything the way I want it. I'm going to tap the shutter button and voila, it's just taken a raw photo. And if I go and look at this in the camera roll, there it is. It just popped up right there. It's that image. And if I notice, it tells me it's a raw file. And if I swipe up, it's going to show me it's a 12 megapixel, 18 megabyte size file. So it's decent resolution with the 2x lens. Now, if I'd taken it with the 1x lens, I'd have a 48 megapixel file, but I got it in close. So here's the thing. If this has been edited, so this is the native editor in the iPhone. If I tap on that, it opens up a raw editor in the iPhone camera. And it's a fine editor, but you can't mask and there's no histogram. So I miss those things. Excuse me. But sometimes I will edit things here. Before I take this into Lightroom, which is usually what I do with the raw file, I want to make sure that I haven't edited this. So that's why, cancel out of this. That's why I opened it up here. I want to make sure I haven't edited this because there's nothing on this screen that will let me know if this raw file has been edited. I wish they put an asterisk by it or something to tell us that this has been an edited file, but they don't. So I always check. And if it was edited and I opened it up, instead of cancel and done, I would see a red revert button here to let me revert this to the original raw file. So the only reason I open this up is to check and make sure that I haven't edited this and that it is truly a raw file. Because if it's edited and I take it into Snapseed or into Lightroom, either one, it goes in as a JPEG, not as a raw file anymore. And I don't want that. I want the benefit of that raw data. So once I've checked and determined that my raw file hasn't been edited and it really is still raw, I'm going to go down to my share icon here, tap on that, and notice one of the options I have is Lightroom right here. Well, if you don't see that, excuse me, got a tickle in my throat. If you don't see that in your tray, in your list, if you come all the way over to the ellipsis at the end where it says more, tap on that, then you're just going to scroll down and find Lightroom and you're going to make it a favorite. And you see on mine, it's showing up here. Once it's up there, it's going to show up in your list here. So let me back up and just show you what I did. You're looking at your file. You've checked to verify that it's not been edited. Now you're going to tap the share icon and tap Lightroom. When you do, you get this little dialog box. The first thing here is it says you can, if you tap got it, it's going to let you add more files to import, and it'll wait until you open Lightroom to do them all. But let's say you're just ready to go now and you want to edit this file right now. That's what I'm going to tap on. And it's going to take it into, it tells me one photo successfully imported. but I'm in the camera photos. I need to switch to imports right here. So here's my imports. There's that file I just imported. I'm going to tap on that. And now I'm in the raw editor. It's telling me it's a DNG file, and I can begin the process of editing this file. So that's how I bring things into this editor. Um, at this point, I start going through that editing process. And once I'm finished with that editing process, whatever it involves, I then save this file back to my camera roll. But it's already been processed. The raw goodness is, I've gotten the goodness out of the raw file. So when I save it back to my camera roll, I save it back either as a JPEG or a TIFF file. I typically save JPEGs, but for those who want a lossless file, a TIFF is another option. But we'll look at that a little bit more. But that's the process I use when I shoot raw with my native camera. That's how I import it into Lightroom to work on it. So,
Rad,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but
No.
someone had a question, and I thought this might be on some other people's minds as well. They wanted to know, where on your iPhone do you set the file as RAW? They need that other class we just recorded.
So say that again. Where on your iPhone do you set it to RAW?
Yeah, they want to know how to take RAW
Oh,
photos
okay. All right.
with your native camera.
Okay. So you're talking about if you're going to use your native camera, where do you go to turn on RAW?
Yeah.
So what you're going to do, it's not in the camera settings, it's in your phone settings down here. So you're going to tap on phone settings and you're in your settings. You're going to scroll all the way down until you get to music, TV, photos, camera. It's pretty far down. Tap on camera. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom of that first page, now it's going to be different depending on which phone you have, but I believe, well, that's macro control. I'm sorry, different thing. Um, you may see a different page here than what I'm seeing, but you will see formats if you have a different phone. So I'm going to tap on formats. In formats, on the later phones, you can choose a default to either HEIC or most compatible, which is JPEG. This default is what your camera is going to shoot when you're not shooting RAW. Okay. In order to shoot RAW, you come down here, you want to make sure that resolution control is green and turned on, and it will activate a Pro default here. If I tap on that, now I can come up here and I can choose between, this is on the 15, but on the earlier phones, you're going to be able to choose, I don't think you can choose the 48 megapixel HEIF file, but you can choose from these. Once you choose the raw version, either 48 or 12 megapixels, and again, I prefer the 48 for more data. Once you do that, it's going to display that icon on your phone. You should see on the earlier phones, it'll just say raw. On the 15, it says raw max. And if you're on the 15, if this is a button, if I tap on where it says raw, it brings up a menu. So I don't have to go back to the phone settings. I can choose right here to shoot a 48 to shoot a 48 megapixel HEIF file, a 12 megapixel RAW, or a 48 megapixel RAW file. So you can choose all of those right there. Now you have that button on your screen. So do you always want to shoot RAW? Well, probably not. Let's say you're out having dinner and you want to send your spouse a picture of your meal. Well, you probably don't need a raw file for that. You're not going to create a wall hanger out of it. So what I would do is tap on that and turn raw off. Now, when I take a photo, it's going to save it it's going to make it either as a JPEG or a HEIF file, whichever I chose in my camera settings in the phone settings. I know it's convoluted, but does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And so everyone knows, like we're recording this, and everybody that's here will get the recording. And if you need to go back and check things, it'll be available to you.
Yeah, and I'm open to questions if you anytime just email me if I'll be traveling a bit in the next month or so, but when I'm around, I'm happy to respond to questions because it is kind of weird. And each phone is different. So, you may have an earlier phone with a little bit things that are a little bit different. So, so what we just did was we took a photograph in the native camera in RAW, and then we um, imported that into Lightroom. So it came into our imports, and now we could take that and begin to work with it. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to switch to go down to this folder here of images that we have. And I would like to just begin to work through the process for editing these raw files. And I'm going to start with one that does just kind of a basic one, and then we'll move into some that are a little more advanced with using the masking tool and so on. But I want to show you just the basic process. So I'm going to take this file right here. You can see it says it's a raw file. I'm going to tap on that and open it up, and I'm now in the iOS or in the Lightroom raw editor. I can see that this is a DNG file, and remember, to see this information, you have to go up to the ellipsis, choose View Options, and make sure this is turned on. And once it's turned on, you'll see either this, tap with two fingers and see the histogram, or tap with two fingers to turn everything off. But those two fingers are going to get you back into seeing your histogram again. I'm going to leave the histogram off for right now. There's a point later where it becomes important to see the histogram, but right now I don't care so much. So here's my process. We're in the editor, we're looking at the image. This is a raw file, and it looks pretty flat. I mean, it's okay, but uh, it's not, it's not alive yet. That's how I think about it. We need to resuscitate it. So what we're going to do, the first thing I do in the process, these are our adjustments down here. Down here is where you choose, like if I chose here, these are preset sets. This is where I can crop and level the image. This takes us into these tools right here. This is our masking tool, which takes us to another place. This is a healing tool, so you can remove items from your image. I'm going to start here with the editor. And the first thing I'm going to do is come over and do an auto adjustment. The reason I do that is that it's a starting point. Sometimes you're going to hit auto and you're going to look at your image and you're going to say, hey, I'm done. This is great. I don't need to do anything else. But most of the time you're going to want to work through this process. What I'm going to do is tap auto. And the other thing, what I want to show you here, these steps seem long and drawn out, but what we're going to do, and I'm going to do this at the end of processing this image. We're going to do the whole process, but then I'm going to save that as a preset, and I'll just call it raw. I'll call it Basecamp raw. And then any other image that we bring in, we don't have to go through all these steps. We just hit that preset button and boom, all that stuff is done for us instantly. So let's just work through the manual process. First thing I'm going to do is tap auto. There's just one touch, and look at the difference. I'm going to hold my finger on the screen. There's before and there's after. I mean, it just changed the dynamic range of the image. It brought the clouds out. It brought out detail in the grasses and some of the colors. And that was just the first auto adjustment. The next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to skip all the way down to effects. And I'm going to tap on effects. And I want to make sure that I'm on effects, because you can also do a vignette and add grain, but I'm going to make sure I'm on effects. And I'm going to take my texture and I'm going to bring the value up to 30. Now, if you look up at the top of the screen, you can see the numbers moving up there. It's a lot easier to see those at the top of the screen than to look at the dial. So I'm going to stop at 30. Then I'm going to go to clarity, and I'm going to take clarity up to about 17. Now, these aren't magic numbers, but they're going to get you so close. You can always zoom in and make tweaks to what we've just done if you think it needs it. I'm pretty happy with where that is right now. So those are the two things that I've done so far. The next thing I'm going to go to is detail. And this is where we do sharpening, and this is probably the most unintuitive of all of these things. Now you can do also denoise and color noise here. I don't usually use these here, but you can. But I'm going to start with sharpening. And this, when I first learned this, I thought, man, this is crazy. I'm going to over sharpen everything. This isn't going to work. But this is a smart sharpening tool, and it has a masking component down here, and it's going to know what to sharpen and what not to sharpen. So it doesn't sharpen the sky, and you'll see what happens. So what I'm going to do is take my sharpening and I'm going to bring it all the way up. If I went to 100%, it would be 150, but I'm going to back it off to 147. Then I'm going to take the radius. If I went all the way, it would go to 3, but I'm going to back it off to about 2.7 or so. Then I'm going to take detail and I'm going to drop it to 0. And the masking, I'm going to take it up. If I went all the way, it would go to 100, but I'm going to back it off to about 97 or so. Now, here's the thing. I would normally think, wow, that's way too much sharpening. That's not going to work. But if you zoom in and look at this, it's awesome. Now, here's what's happening. The masking is what's preventing us from getting a sharpened sky. Here, if I take my finger and hold it on the screen here, and then move the masking slider down here, watch what happens. I'm going to hold my finger on the image and grab the slider. Look, you can see if I go all the way down to 0 on masking, and then as I start to increase, you can see where the sharpening is going to happen. There's about halfway, and look at the sky. We're still getting sharpening in the sky. But as I move up further, closer to 100, there's 97. Look, there's no sharpening in that sky anymore. It's only in the grasses and the car and the trees. So, and I'll back that off to 97. So it's pretty amazing. And again, these are not magic numbers, and you may want to tweak them a little bit, but it's going to get you very close to where you want to be. The next thing I'm going to do here is tap optics. And there are two settings here. One is chromatic aberrations. Well, I turn both of these on, even though chromatic aberrations, I mean, there's nothing in here that falls into that category. But if you're shooting into the sun, or if the sun was reflecting off a piece of chrome here, you could possibly get some of that. So this could help with that. But I just turn them both on. If I turn the first one on, you're not going to see anything. But watch when I turn on lens correction. Just watch this part of the image right here. I'm going to tap it, and here we go. You see that little pulse? I'm going to turn it off. Watch the center of the image again. Just a little pulse, and I'll turn it on, and it's just a tiny adjustment, but it's correcting for the distortion that can occur with the lenses that we're using. So I use it. It's a subtle thing. I don't know if I'm just a little crazy, but I think it makes a difference when I look at a print that I've made. I don't know. I need to do a side-by-side comparison, but I turn both of those on. The next thing I'm going to do after doing auto, effects, detail, and optics, I'm going to come to color. And the color tool in here, this is the color management tool. And it's really awesome. I mean, I really like this tool because, well, first of all, there are 3 levels to it. The first level is a global level, and that's where we are right now. So if I wanted to make an adjustment to the vibrance of the color or the saturation, it's going to affect the entire image. So watch it. I'm just going to max out the saturation. I just saturated every color in the image up to 100%. Well, clearly that's too much. But my point is, there may be times when that's all you want to do is do a global adjustment, maybe to color, maybe to vibrance or to saturation. Maybe you want to just warm the image up by moving the slider on the warmth slider for temperature over to the warmer side. And I'm just going to tap on these to reset them. My point is, you can just do a global adjustment if that's all you want to do, but it gets better because you can choose the next level, which is color mix. If I tap on color mix, now I can select any of these colors by tapping on them. So let's just tap on blue. When I adjust saturation or any of these luminance, it's only going to affect the blue in the image. So watch what happens when I maximize this blues here. Look at the sky. So look, it's just really intensified the blue in the sky, but it also picked up the blue here in the car. So I used to use this a lot more before they made some improvements to the masking tool. In the masking tool, maybe you want to affect the blue in the sky, but you don't want to affect the blue in the car. Well, in the masking tool, you can do that. You can say, let's just affect the sky here, but let's not worry about the blue down here. So there are some things that the masking tool does that you kind of takes things a step further. But this is still pretty cool. I mean, I can back this off. Then I could also choose, let's say I choose yellow. There's all kinds of yellow in these grasses. So watch when I bring the yellow up. Now I'm really bringing up the yellow in these grasses. If I choose red, there's a place in here, I believe it's going to, I don't know if we'll see it or not, but it's actually bringing up the red in the rust and the edge of the car here. So again, I'm going to reset all these to 0. And to do that, I'm just going to double tap on the icon. And that's the second level. There's a third level of color management, and it's this icon right here. And if I tap on this, it takes us into where we can adjust hue, saturation, or luminance. And you want to make sure you're on saturation because it doesn't default to that. And if you start messing with your hue, you'll just totally mess up your image and have to back up. So saturation, watch what happens. I'm going to put my finger on the colors that I want to adjust. So I want to bring up these colors right in here. If I put my finger on the screen and look down below, it's selecting yellow and green. And as I slide to the right, I'm increasing those values. Then I can go up to the sky and I can slide my finger. Now it's selecting light and dark blue, and I'm going to slide my finger to the right. Then I can go into this area right in here, and I think it's going to pick up red and orange. Well, there, look, red and orange. Now I'm going to slide to the right, and I'm pulling the rust up in that car. So now, if I, whoops, I just dragged my fingers trying to do a 2-finger pinch, which you can't do in here. So I really skewed it. So so you can't do a 2-finger pinch, and you can't see before and after, which is what I was trying to show you. So what I'm going to do is just back out of this, and there's before and there's after. Now I'm going to go back into this tool here, and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to reset these values, and I'm using the reset button up at the top. I'm going to change these back. There. So now we're back to kind of where we were without a bunch of color in there. Maybe a little bit, we got a little bit of saturation here. So this color management tool, my point here is it's really, you can selectively work with those colors. The next thing that I might do with this, and again, let's just go down here and maybe saturate this a little bit here globally. The next thing I might do here is go into light. And if I go into light, this is where I want to see my histogram. I'm going to take 2 fingers and tap on the screen. Boom. And tap again. Boom. There's my histogram. So if we look at this, what I'm seeing over here is that these are my blacks and these are my whites, and I'm clipping over here, and I'm losing some of the detail in these darker areas, and I'm blowing out some of these areas in the highlights. So what I'm going to do is choose light, and I'm going to go down here to my blacks and my whites. I'm going to take the blacks, and I'm going to take the slider to the right, and I'm watching the histogram. Now I'm no longer clipping. I'm going to come right back to the edge to where it's just barely clipping over here. Then I'm going to come to the white slider, and I'm going to drop my whites down until they're not clipping. Now, as I look at this image, I'm still a little hot here, I think. So what I may do is come up and drop my highlights a little bit and see if I can kind of fix that. So now we've adjusted for color and light. if I hold my finger down, there's where we started, kind of flat, and there's where we are now. Pretty big difference. Now, if I come down to masking, and we'll go into this in more detail in a minute. I'm just going to do one thing. We're in the masking tool. So masking is going to let us select an area to adjust just that area. If I tap on the blue plus sign here, these are the masks that I can create. I could select a subject. I could select the sky. I could choose a brush and paint in whatever I want to select. I can use a linear gradient or a radial gradient, or I can choose a color or a brightness in the image. What I'm going to do is start with selecting a sky. And watch what happens. I'm just going to tap select sky. And look at that. I mean, it really does a nice job of selecting the sky. Now, it did get a little bit of the trees at the edge, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. I don't think it's going to make a difference. What I'm going to do now is come down to these adjusters here, and I can make adjustments that are going to affect only the sky. So if I go into light, for example, let's say I drop the exposure way down, I'm only affecting that sky. Clearly not where I want to go, but you could see using that for drama or whatever. But let's say I want to drop the highlights in the sky and I can drop them down here. Maybe I could come over and lift the shadows a little bit and lift that blue, or drop the shadows down and have a more of a dramatic sky. I could go into color and I could back the saturation off in the sky, or I could bring it up, whichever. I mean, it's kind of crazy blue there, but I could back it off a little too. The other thing with the sky, a lot of times what I will do, I don't want to see noise in my sky. Now we've done this masking, but look, we're starting to get a little bit of noise in the sky. So often what I will do is come down to effects, tap on effects, and I can drop my texture down and my clarity down, and it's only affected the sky. And now I've got my sky back to a creamier consistency without that noise. So these are just a few of the things that you can do with masking. Once you've got what you want to do here, I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark. And now we're back in the main editor, and I'm going to hold my finger down. There's where we started with this image, and there's where we are now. Maybe a little oversaturated, but overall you get the idea of what you can do with this. And that's what I love about this tool. So at this point, we're ready to save this image, and I save it back to the camera roll. So this is the share icon right here. I'm going to tap on the share icon, and down below, the option that I want here is save copy to device. So it's going to save it to my camera roll. The first time you do this, you want to make sure you check your settings. And your settings are going to allow you to choose a file type that you save it back to your camera roll in. Make sure that you're saving at largest available dimensions and 100%. You don't want something less than 100% or less than the most you can get. When you do file type here, if I tap on this, we've already got the goodness out of the raw file. So I typically save either as a JPEG or a TIFF. I know a lot of people prefer the lossless TIFF, and that's fine. Just be aware these are much larger files. So if space is an issue, that's going to be something to think about. I typically at this point save them as a JPEG. If I know I'm going to print, I might save to TIFF and print from Photoshop with a TIFF file. But I'm going to save as a JPEG. I'm going to make sure that my dimensions are 100, largest available, and that my quality is 100%. Once you've done this, make sure you check the check mark and not the X. If you've made changes, it won't record your changes. So I'm going to tap the check mark, and now I'm ready to save this file to my device. So I'm going to tap this icon here, and it saves it out to my camera roll. And if there tells me it was saved, and if I go and look at it in the camera roll, there's the image. And if I swipe up on it, which is how you get your information on the image, it tells me it's a JPEG, it's 12 megapixels, and it's a 12 megabyte size file, and it was last processed in Lightroom. At this point, I might take this into Snapseed and do a few finishing touches that I like there. But we can be done. Um, let's go choose another one here. How are we doing on time, Angel? Let's see, 8:33. We okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I want to show you, let me go ahead and get this. And I've processed this image already. So what I want to do is I want to revert it back to the original. So to do that, I'm going to come up here to the history. I'm going to tap on that and I'm going to choose reset. And it asks me down below, well, what do you want to reset? Well, I want to reset everything. So there's our image. This image was made with an iPhone 15 Pro Max and the 13mm ultra wide angle lens. This is the dance school in Havana, ballet school. And so you can see the keystoning is outrageous here, but I really like the shadows. I like what was going on there. And I knew I was going to correct for this, but um, I knew it needed help, but I still did it wide because I wanted all that. And then when it gets adjusted, you'll see what happens. So before I do anything here, I want to go in and I'm going to choose the cropping icon here. When I tap on that, it brings me into the geometry tool. This is where you could also set your aspect ratio. You could straighten the image. But what I want to do is go into geometry. But before I do that, I'm going to tap on the pencil here, and I'm going to click to constrain the crop, and then say done. And now I'm going to tap auto geometry and watch what happens to the image. I mean, that's pretty amazing in terms of keystone correction and with a button touch. So I wanted to show you that. I use this all the time. It's great for images that are maybe just slightly off level, like a horizon line or something like that. Um, and so at that point, um, we could go ahead and do our process. You know what, though? I'm going to back up because I forgot to show you something I'm going to go back to that image of the car that we did. And I'll back out of this for just a second. And I'm going to go back to the car, to this one right here. So I'm going to tap on it and select it. And this is the one we just edited, right? So we did all those edits to this image. Well, I want to create a preset that has those adjustments in it so I don't have to go through that long drawn out process every time I process a raw file. So to do that, I'm going to come up to the ellipsis up here. I'm going to tap on it and I'm going to choose save or create preset. And I'm going to look at the things that I want to include. And I want to include optics. I want to include light, color, effects. I'm not going to include masking because masking can be specific to each image and for selecting the sky and so on. So I'm not going to select that, but I'm going to select all of these other things. Then I'm going to give it a name and I'm just going to call it, I'll call it Bandcamp Raw.
You mean
And
base camp?
I mean Basecamp. Ah, thank you. Duh. Basecamp Raw. Thank you, Angel. Okay, Basecamp Raw. And then I'm going to click the check mark at the top. And now I've created a preset called Basecamp Raw. So now let's back out of here. Let's go back to this image. Let's see, why isn't it showing us the correction? Oh, maybe we undid that. All right, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to redo that geometry. And now I'll commit to that change. And now I'm going to go to my preset right here, tap on that, and I'm going to choose, where'd it go? Basecamp Raw. And I'm going to tap on that. Oh, and it applied all of that stuff. Now, obviously, I got that, that was from the blue in the car, so it's way overbaked. But that's the kind of thing. Here's one that I have for my most of my other stuff here. So there's a raw color too. If I tap on that one, gets us a lot more close. So my point is you're going to do your processing on one of these with that workflow and then save a preset, call it raw, whatever you want to call it. And then when you bring in raw files, you can do all that stuff with the push of a button and then go in and do your fine tuning and masking and other unique things on the image. All right. Um, let's see. Let's take a look at this image. This is an infrared image. So this was made with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, the native camera, and you can see it's that magenta color, and that's going to happen when you do infrared. Your image is going to look like this as a raw file. And depending on the filter you use, this is a 720 nanometer filter, and it's from one particular supplier. If you get a 720 nanometer filter from another supplier, that tint may be slightly different. You may get a slightly different result. But here's the process for doing infrared. So the first thing I'm going to do, once again, well, actually, first thing I'm going to do is go to color, not auto. I'm going to go to color. Let me think about this. Is that right? It might be backwards. I'm going to go to color. I'm going to change it to black and white. I'm just going to change by tapping the button here. There are other ways you can do this, but I find this seems to work just as well as anything else. Next, I'm going to tap on auto, and let's see, it might take us back to red. Yeah. So first I adjust for color and get the black and white. Then I did an auto adjustment. So here's where we started with the image, and there's where we are now. As I look at the image, I notice there's a shadow right here that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to use the healing tool here, tap on that, and I'm going to make sure that I've got healing selected. I'm just going to zoom in on that, and I'm just going to take that spot out of there. That's okay. And so there. So now I'm going to continue. I've done color and auto. Now I'm going to go to effects. And now the process is very much the same. I'm going to go and bring my texture up to about 30, my clarity up to about 17. I'm going to go to sharpening, make sure I'm on sharpening. I'm going to bring it up to about 147 or so. Radius up to about 2.7. Detail down to 0. Masking all the way up to about 97 or so, and optics, both of those. And then I'm going to go to light, and I'm looking at my histogram, and I see that my blacks are clipped. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I see that my blacks are over here, and I've got some room to open up my whites a little bit. So I'm going to start with my black slider, and I'm going to move it to the right, and see I'm just watching the histogram until I'm no longer clipping on the left. Then I'm going to go to whites, and I'm going to see how much I can open that up. I've got a little room, and I'm really watching the histogram. So now I'm looking at the image, and if I zoom in on it, that's starting to look pretty good. Now, I could begin to do some other things here. I could drop my highlights down a little bit. I might come and lift my shadows. Actually, what I would do is probably drop my shadows because I really want to emphasize these shadows in the foreground. And that may be all I do in this editor at this point. So what I'm going to do next is go to my masking tool, tap on masking. And one of the things that happens a lot of times with infrared, and I see it happening here, and this happens with big camera infrared as well. Sometimes certain situations will create a hotspot. It's often either a camera lens, it could be the filter, it could be the way the light is coming into the side of the camera, maybe possibly getting a bit of a light leak. I don't know. But when I look at this, I notice I've got a hotspot right here. It's very subtle, but do you see it? It's just a brighter area right here. Well, there's a way to kind of mitigate that using a mask. What I'm going to do is tap on the plus sign, and I'm going to get a radial gradient mask. Excuse me. A radial gradient. Tap on that, and I'm going to take my finger and just draw on the screen, and I'm creating just an oval, and I'm going to position it approximately over that area. Now, I want to make sure that my brush has a lot of feather to it. Now, if I take it way down, there's a very hard-edged brush. I don't want that. I'm going to bring it up to where it's a little bit soft. And now I'm going to tap on light, and so the area inside the circle is brighter than the area outside. So what I'm going to do is simply take my exposure down a couple, maybe just a couple notches. And I'm looking for that to balance that out. That actually looks pretty good. Maybe just a little bit more. So the other thing you can do here to see before and after, if you go to the mask right here and tap on that, you can bring up this menu and you can hide the mask so it's not appearing on the image. So there's hidden, and you see how bright it is. And then when I turn it on and show it, it's mitigated that hot spot. It's much better than it was. So at that point, I could start working with other masks. So with the black and white, the other thing I would do is select a sky. And it's going to do a decent job, but look, it's still getting some of the branches of these trees. So one of the things you can do is subtract from a mask. So if I come into the mask, here's the cloud mask that we're looking at, sky mask. If I tap on that, I can choose add to or subtract from. So I'm going to say, let's subtract from this mask. So I'll subtract, and it's going to say, well, what do you want to use to subtract with? Well, I want to use a brush. So I'm going to use the brush. I'm going to choose the size of my brush, and I want it to be pretty small. I also want it to be very feathered, but I can also choose some opacity here. So I can bring it down. I can make it very opaque or more transparent. So I'm going to maybe somewhere in the middle. And then I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to come over here and just brush in, and I'm erasing it from the tree part of the image. And I'm going really quickly here, but you get the idea. You can take much more time with this and be more precise. So now when I go down to work on that area, I'm going to go to my highlight or to my light. And let's say I can drop my highlights down, or if I bring them up, you see how I'm affecting areas of the image. I could drop my shadows and make the sky a little bit more dramatic. And so I'm still in the masking tool. And if I want to turn the red off, this icon right here at the top, I can tap to turn that off. And I can see kind of what's going on. So at this point, I might want to do something. I love these shadows down here, and I want to emphasize them a little bit. So I'm going to tap on the mask icon here, and I'm going to choose another mask, plus sign. And this time I'm going to get a linear gradient. So when I tap on that, I'm going to take my finger from the bottom and drag up. And it's going to be darker at the bottom and gradually get lighter as we go up. So there's my gradient. And by the way, if these things get in your way, you can just grab this little handle here and slide them out of your way. So what I want to do is emphasize those shadows. So I'm going to come down here to light. And I could come down and just try and drop my blacks a little bit. Look at how I'm bringing those shadows out. I like the drama of those shadows. I could also bring the whites up a little bit. You could also go to contrast, which is going to brighten the brights and darken the shadows, but that's a little, I don't know. Sometimes that works okay. Let's see what it does. I kind of like that. So now we've got the drama in this foreground from our linear gradient rather. So we used a radial gradient to hide the hot spot, a linear gradient to emphasize these areas. And then just one last thing here that's really, really cool, that it's powerful. If I do another mask, you can do a mask that's based on color. So if or not color, but well, you can do color, but I meant I want to do luminance. So luminance is the brightness in the image. So Um, if it puts a loop on the screen, and I want to come over here and I want to get this dark area right here. So I put this little target right on the dark, and you can see the areas that are being affected. And I can come down to the slider here, and I can go to the right and intensify those areas, or I can go to the left and kind of isolate them a little bit more. Now, when I can apply that mask, now I can go to light. And if I lift the shadows, I'm lifting some of that really dark area off of this house over here. You could also bring your blacks tiny bit up and kind of juggle between those two. So now um, I'm going to go ahead and commit to that masking. And now there's our image. I mean, it's so much more dramatic. We've got these shadows coming in here. We've got the house is a little bit freed up. You can even see a little bit of light and shadow on the side of the house. And then our sky just looks tremendous. So that's what I love about masking. Um, you can just kind of craft all these different pieces of your image. And again, once we're done, I'm going to come up to share the share icon and tap save to device. And there's our image. And let's see if I can turn it sideways and you can see it bigger. Um, so these are some of the reasons that I just love this tool. And I mean, I'm aware of the time and I'm happy to keep going, or I can answer questions that people might have. Angel, what do you think?
I, Gosh, I want you to keep going, but I know that we do need to get to our member submitted image reviews. So maybe even in the working with those images, we'll be able to answer some questions. But if you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourselves and ask some specific questions, um, feel free to. I think I already answered the one about the histogram and adding and subtracting from the mask. Melina wanted to know, why do you save to JPEG? And then do you have both RAW and JPEG files in your library?
Well, so once I've processed the raw file, I feel like I've gotten out of it the goodness that I want out of it. And I'm going to save it back to the iPhone as a JPEG and work with it, finish it off from there. But yes, the original, if we go back to Lightroom, um, here's that file we just worked on. We just processed it. It's still a raw file. So it's still there as a raw file. If I wanted, I can select it and I can um, remove all those edits by resetting everything. So you haven't lost your original raw file. But once I've processed it, then I don't care that it's a JPEG or a lot, like I say, a lot of people like the lossless TIFF format. And then I would print from that TIFF or do additional processing in the JPEG in something like Snapseed or a stylizing tool.
Perfect. Okay, and then we have a couple of gear questions from Sharon. So I'm just going to ask you both questions at once. So one is, she wants to know if you use a stylus for editing on the iPhone. And she also wants to know what kind of tripod mount you recommend for mobile devices.
Okay. Well, I have used styluses in the past. I have one now and it's in my drawer where it's been for a long time. I don't find that I get a lot of advantage to using a stylus. The ones that work on the phone, there are some different ones for the iPad that may be better, but with the phone, they don't offer you a whole lot of advantage. I find I do better with my finger. I've also learned that for cutting in really close, I would have never thought this, but your fingernail can actually help you. And I don't have any fingernails, but just, you can actually use the edge of your fingernail to get close to cutting things in when you're doing a mask in Snapseed or something close, some kind of close work in Lightroom. I don't see an advantage to it. But Yeah, whoever that is, if you want to email me, I'll send you the link to the one I got on Snapseed. It's like I think it was $19. Um, but what was the other part of that question? Was there another part?
Oh, what tripod mount do you recommend?
Oh, the tripod mount. There are a couple. There's one by Pictron. Excuse me. I'll include a slide in the slide deck that I have that has links to a couple of those. Um, there's one that's made by is it Manfrotto? It's like $20 and it's very, very basic. I don't have it here because I've actually already shipped some of my gear to Cape Cod, or I'd show it to you, but it's a spring loaded one. And a lot of people have trouble pulling it apart to put the phone in. So if you have hand strength issues, there's another one by Pictron that's really good. It's probably not much more, maybe $28. And it's an excellent tripod mount. Most of them have a foot on them that fit into those really right stuff, or is it Swiss mount, that fit the standard tripod head. I'll include
Awesome.
the page in these slides, Angel.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and the in the slides will be all the live links to the things that Rad has been talking about in the intro as well. Okay, so somebody wants to know, Paul says, with infrared, do you compose the image without the filter in place?
Um, well, that's a great question. Most of the time, no. Most of the time, yes, with the filter in place. But since I got this new magnetic filter that's so easy to take on and off, if I'm having trouble seeing my scene because it's so dark from the infrared filter, I will pop it off because it's so easy just to pull off now. Before you had to unscrew something and take it off, and it was a little more hassle. So I just usually struggled to make sure that I was patient and composed. But now I'll take it off, compose my image, and put it back on. But most of the time, you can still see fine. When you have that infrared filter and you're out on a bright day, um, you can still see really well, especially if you've changed your view to see black and white instead of that magenta. You can compose pretty well through the filter.
Okay. Somebody wants to know, they say you talk about printing. What is your printer and what paper do you print on?
Oh gosh, I have an Epson 3880 um, printer. It's an old printer, but it's still going strong. It prints up to 22 inches wide. And I really like, hold on a second. I gotta take my leash off and I can grab some paper here. Um, Museo. I like Museo uh, digital fine art, and also ultra premium photo luster by Epson. But there are lots of different papers out there. Those are two that I really like. Um, if you're really, I can tell you what I do. If you really want to know more about this, I have a good friend here, lives in Indianapolis. He's a lifelong photographer. His name's Kevin Raber, and Kevin is a printer. He knows printing. He is the what do you call it? Resident artist, or what do they call those people that do art for a place? Artist in residence with the Indianapolis Art Museum, and he has printers from Canon, Epson, a bunch of others. Anyway, he does workshops on this and does a really nice job. He talks about print papers, and goes in depth into printing both from the iPhone and from big cameras. So Kevin Raber, check him out. He can really get you a lot more detail on that. The papers I love, I like I said, the Museo Fine Art Silver Rag and the Epson Photo Premium Luster are two of my favorites.
Great. I also recommend to my clients to find a lab that they want to work with and then order some samples, like just small test prints, and see how the different papers change the look of your images, and then see which one resonates best with
Huh.
your work. Because what lights Rad's work up on paper might be different than what lights yours up on paper. It just depends, like different people have different shooting styles and editing styles, and some papers might work better for you than others.
Good, good
Okay, so
idea.
we have one more here. Oh, one question that I wanted to ask you. So somebody was asking how soon we would send out the slides, and I can send the slide link with the recording. Uh, is tomorrow cool for you, Rad?
Yeah, I'll get them to you here yet tonight. Once we finish here, I'll send them to you and you can get them out there whenever you can.
Awesome. Yeah, then I will send the slide link with the recording link. Should come to you in your email tomorrow. If for some reason you don't get it in your email, there may be a reason why you're not subscribed to my list or unsubscribed or whatever like that. Sometimes emails fall into like the abyss status. Just feel free to email me, angel@basecampphotoclub.com, and I will personally take care of you and make sure you get everything that's coming to you. All right, so then there's some love for you in the chat, Rad, if you want to check that out. I agree with everybody here. What a great presentation, super thorough. And
Thank you.
I can say that like now, so I'm gonna just let you guys in on a secret. Uh, Last week, Rad and I recorded a presentation for an upcoming photo summit that I'm going to be launching soon. So that's the secret. You guys are the first people to know. But I can tell you that when I was on the presentation and I was watching as he was doing it, my mind was blown with all the tips and settings and things that you could do with the phone. I just got the 14 Pro Max and I upgraded from the 8. So I am
That's a
still like
big
learning
leap.
all the
Yeah.
things. It really is. And it unlocks so much. But then Rad was showing all the different menus and things, and I had no idea that my phone could do all of this or my phone camera. So he is the guy. So when it comes to iPhone photography. So I'm really happy you guys are here. I hope that you're feeling as inspired as I am. And be sure to stay tuned for that as well, because you guys are going to love it. So yeah, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up our member submitted images. Rad and I are going to give them a look and give some feedback. We're going to answer questions. And while I'm doing that, if anybody wants to ask a question, feel free to do that. It'll
So
take me
I
just a
stopped sharing.
second.
Is that you're going to share the images on your screen? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to pull them up right now.
Rad, I've got a question.
Yeah, Dave.
I am in a position where I have a small file from the iPhone, and the woman wants to make a 20 by 30 print of my image. So I'm looking at gigapixel in Topaz, and you say Topaz AI. What's the difference? Gigapixel. Topaz has about 2 or 3 different things.
Yeah.
What do I get?
Well, gigapixel's fine, and I think that recently they've done some updates to that application. Photo AI, I think, is a little more versatile in that it takes gigapixel, denoise, and sharpen, and it's all in one tool. But
So
gigapixel
Photo
is,
AI, is that a Topaz product?
yeah, they're all Topaz. Yeah, Topaz created gigapixel, denoise AI, and sharpen AI, and then they put all of them together into the new tool, Photo AI.
So Photo AI is what I should order then.
Well, if you have gigapixel already, I mean that it's
No,
still a
no,
good,
I haven't. I wanted to
yeah.
wait to ask you.
Yeah, I think you'll depending on the quality of the image and how much you've got to enlarge it, I mean you may be surprised at how well it cleans it up.
Cool. All right. That's what I'll do. Thank you.
Sure.
Dave, I'm not surprised that somebody wants a 20 by 30 of one of your images. They're so cool.
Thank you. I love it.
All right. All right, so here we go with our member submitted images. So just so you guys know, like I said, Basecamp Photo Club meets 2 times a month, and our members are able to submit images for review. So we do this, they can submit 2 images per meeting, and we have our guest presenter look them over. And the goal of this is just to give feedback and to answer questions. So if someone is trying to achieve something in support of their vision and they're not quite sure how to get there, there's just something that like is bothering them, they can ask questions like, how do I do this? Or I was trying to do that and I didn't accomplish it. Otherwise, sometimes people are showing an image and they want to see if what they're trying to get across is also resonating with the viewers, and so they like a little bit of feedback. The purpose of this is to be able to take a step back from our own images, because we all know the context and the emotions in which we shot the images. So we take a step back and we let someone else give us feedback on the images, and if we agree, we might go in and do a couple of changes or learn something new, and that might be in support of our vision. And if we don't agree, that also strengthens us as an artist, because we can take a step back and say, you know what? I feel really confident about what I created, and I think I'm going to leave it like that. Either way, it helps to strengthen us moving forward and helps us accomplish our vision. So, Rad, thank you for being a part of this process with us.
My pleasure.
All right, so our theme tonight is shot on mobile. We have several photos in the theme category and then just a few in our open category, which might be photos shot on other devices. So our first image is from Sharon Gardner, and the name of the photo is Gunderson Rock Sunrise. So, do you want me to
Yeah,
start, or do you
yeah,
want to?
no, I'll start. So I love this image. When I first saw it, it just blew my mind. I love what you've done with the clouds. I'm not sure what processing you did. I mean, when I looked at all of these images tonight, I was blown away. And there's not a whole lot of, constructive criticism that I can offer on this. Um, I will say that whenever I do this, anything I share with you, it's my opinion, and it's what I would do if I ask myself, if this was my image, what would I do differently, or what would I try?
Right.
And on this, I don't know that I would really do anything. Um, I know we've recently played around with panoramas in another group that I'm in with Sharon, and the one thing that I would think, maybe, I don't know, if you look at this image, and you can't see my cursor on the screen, can you? That's
No.
okay. At the bottom here, the only thing I would think of doing is possibly just a little bit narrower crop to drop the horizon down
Yeah.
and make it more of a panorama.
Okay.
But I mean, it's so good the way it is. I don't know that I would change anything.
Thank you.
Actually, when I look at it, there is one thing that I'm seeing now. When you're doing your processing, we were looking at this in the uh, Lightroom editing when you've got hotspots. When I look at this, I'm seeing some areas right here and right here where there's no detail. If this is a raw file, you may be able to go in and find detail in those areas.
Oh,
And
okay. Mhm.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forget you can't see my, yeah.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
That's
Well,
mine.
that's
Oh, it's
Angel's.
yours.
Yeah, that's Angel's
I'm
cursor.
seeing somebody's.
Yeah, that's exactly the area that I'm talking about.
Okay.
Everything else looks pretty good. Those two areas, if you look closely, they're after, you can see they're really hot.
Yep.
The data may be there. If it's a raw file, you may be able to pull it out.
It's raw. I always shoot
See if
raw.
you can pull it out of that area. Yeah, you could put a
Okay.
little mask over that, or do a luminance mask and see if you could pull
Excellent.
it out. But
Okay.
other than
And I agree with the cropping a little more. I see what you're saying. I like that idea. So thank you.
and it's just a try it and see kind of thing.
Okay.
You may end up right back where you started.
I think it would look nicer with a little bit less sand. So yeah. Okay. Thank
Well,
you.
and the really cool thing about shooting on the iPhone is they're so ultra wide, especially if we go to the ultra wide setting.
Yeah.
So, I think you shared with me that you've been learning more about landscape photography and that this rock is a favorite subject for
Yep.
you. So, like on a day like this where the sky is just popping, like it's so dynamic, you can even get low and make the rock look bigger and make the sky look even wider.
Okay.
Or, you have these great leading lines in the sand. So if you tilt the phone and you change the horizon a little bit, you can do like a big sweeping uh thing of the sand, and what a great place to practice. This is amazing. And I
Yeah, it's
love the
beautiful.
colors in this photo.
It changes every day. I mean, it's just right down the street. So I walk there regularly and I'm lucky, it's a beautiful spot. But I love all the ideas I'm hearing, so I can go try and play.
Oh, Rad, I'm gonna share with Sharon something that I learned from you, which I've been having so much fun with as a landscape photographer. So, if the phone is in live mode when you shoot the picture,
Yeah.
then you can tap the live mode menu on the photo, and there comes a drop down, and you can pick long exposure, and then it changes it to a long exposure after the fact, and you can make the water smooth, and that rocks. So I just learned that, and I've been practicing. It's so fun.
More information's excellent. It's more in my toolbox. I love it.
Yeah. All right. So the next one is Eyes Upon Your Soul by Patricia Fries.
Yeah, this is another one that just really blew me away. I really like what's happening with the image. I mean, the way the composition with the lines over here, you've got these triangles here and here, this shadow, um, and its counterpart. I mean, the composition is awesome. I don't know, again, I don't know what I would do. I like the level of detail that you've included in this looks like some kind of structure, like a stucco or something, like not quite stucco, but very textured finish on this building. And I really like the way you've brought that up. The colors are amazing. I can't tell. It looks like you've given maybe slight vignette to the image, which I like. I don't know. It seems to be. I can feel it up here a little bit more, and I like that. I like a vignette on an image like that. I mean, that's just awesome. I think it's a good square image as well.
Yeah, I really have nothing to add. I think this is phenomenal and so cool. And I like the color choices and the vignette, the lighting, the drama, like everything's working.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. The next one is, oh my, I might have to get Val to say the name of this place. This image is by Val Shield, and it has a
Okay.
very complicated name.
You would ask me that, wouldn't you, Angel? It's I'll have to go and think. It's Ayashikado. It's in Japan
Okay.
in near Hagai that I was there recently. And I must say thank you, Rad. You've blown my mind with mobile phones now, and I've got an Android. And so I'm going to be doing a lot more of this because I've tried to do cave photography, and when I thought, oh, blow, I'm just going to use my mobile phone for this. And I didn't know about all the settings that you can do with it. So my mind is absolutely blown with
Well,
all this.
good. Well, I'm glad you're here tonight because I don't remember earlier I said that there was someone who'd created an image that looked like they used Flash. Can you tell me, did you use Flash in this image?
I don't think I did because it was well lit inside the
Okay.
cave.
It looks like a cave or something. Is it
It is.
inside?
It is. We're
Yeah.
underground.
Okay.
It's actually called the 100 Plates in Japan, and it was just I took so many, and I thought, what am I going to do with this?
Well, I mean, I like the composition of it. I like the layers, throughout the image and all the structure. Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I would do. I mean, it's clearly a very structured, the texture in the stone and everything. And I don't know how you emphasize that. And I don't know if it's hard to tell if it were mine, I might back it off a little bit and see
Mhm.
it almost looks like it might be too structured. If that using the structure tool or effects in Lightroom, but I don't know. I mean, I'd have to play with it. But I mean, man, the color's great, the composition's cool. I love the layers. I thought maybe you used Flash, but I get the scene now. It's in the cave and it's very well lit. But fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yep.
I I think
It was
this image is awesome. And one thing that came to my mind when I saw it is uh if you have other frames or maybe like just on this one, if you crop this in like this and made it super abstract, that would make a crazy hard puzzle.
oh, okay. Okay. That sounds
If you had
great.
it printed on a puzzle, I know I'm always thinking about puzzles when I see images, and this one would be amazing.
Hadn't thought about that. I like doing puzzles.
Yeah, that would be a good one. Hard. Okay, this one is Cherry Tree by Shelley Corliss.
Shelley, this is my kind of image. I'd like to know more about how you made it. I love the way you've blurred the background and texturized the background, almost like a intentional camera movement going on behind the tree, but the flowers are still clear. Can you tell me more about how you made it?
Well, yes, the tree was created sort of using a pep and toza technique.
Oh
So
yeah,
then
okay.
I did that for the tree. Then I used another software program for Photoshop to blur the background. So then I
So
blended the two images together.
what did you use to do the multiple exposure, the Pep Ventosa style thing?
Well, this was shot with my iPhone.
Right, but what isn't Pep Ventosa? I think of it being like it's multiple exposures in the camera.
Yes, this was taken, this was approximately 10 different angles of the tree. Then I would use, then I take those 10 images and I would blend them together in Photoshop to make the one tree.
Oh, okay, okay, very cool. Yeah. So you did multiple exposure, or you did multiple images, but put them together in Photoshop. So
Yes,
so for those who are interested, there's an app for the iPhone. It's called Average Cam Pro, and it's an ancient app. It's been around for 12 years and hasn't been updated in forever. So I'm waiting for it to just die. But it allows you to do anywhere from 1 to 125 photographs, multiple exposures in the camera. So you can set it, it's like for this image, you could set it to take maybe 8 photographs and move the camera while it's taking those 8, and you're going to get that Pep Ventosa look. This is beautiful. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't, but I'm saying for those who want to do this on the iPhone, there's an option available to us. But I love what you've done here. I think it's just an extraordinary image.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, I love these colors and everything. I if I might play around if this were mine, just with darkening this down, or maybe like cloning out this, or maybe even like a little crop. You don't want to get too tight, but just so like you don't look at these lines over here and you only see this beautiful curve here leading to this amazing tree, and you're not looking at these over here. But again, that's just my opinion and the feedback there. All right, so this one is by Shirley Day. This one is Warped Alley.
I'm not sure. This is cool. Is it a reflection?
Well, actually, I was playing around with panoramic and I wanted to do something different rather than just a horizon. And so I wanted to ask you, because I know it's not a perfect picture by any means,
Oh,
how,
I love it.
oh, thank you, how I can improve on it, because I know it's a little jagged. But anyway, I've
Yeah,
been playing around with
you're talking about some of
trees.
these areas. Which app did you use to make it?
Oh, I just used my iPhone, the panoramic
Oh, the
setting.
panorama tool in the iPhone.
Mhm.
Okay. So is this a vertical where you rolled your camera up?
Yep.
So the only thing that I can think of with the panorama tool, usually these kinds of marks mean that you know how there's that yellow line and you try to keep the arrow on the yellow line.
Yeah.
Usually these lines occur when you get one side or the other of the yellow line. So maybe you drift to the left and then you drift to the right. If you're doing that, that may be where some of the jaggedness is coming from. If you can stay on the yellow line when you're rolling up, you may eliminate some of that jaggedness. Does that sound like it might be the case?
That is the case.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to even get a decent picture.
Well, and it does take practice. You know, it's really weird. The thing that I do with it is to try and, like, when you're doing one of those like this one where you're doing a vertical one, rather than lifting the camera straight up, take it and roll the camera.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Just roll the camera, and try that. And it takes practice. It's hard to keep it on that silly
Yeah.
yellow line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Well,
I
I
love
think
it. I think it's a really fun image. I like the colors. I like the way it, I thought it was a reflection, and I thought some of these things would have been part of, you know, like water movement. So it didn't detract from it to me. It made it more mysterious.
cool.
So I like it.
Awesome. A little more practice.
Yeah.
Shirley, I think this goes right in with your dreamscapes because it's not perfect and it does give that mystery and make us wonder. Um, that's just your style.
Yep. And I'm probably going to do more of it. I'm playing with trees now too.
Nice. All right, this one is 903 by Patricia Fries.
Are you there, Patricia? Well, I like this image a lot. And in fact, I confess I played with it. I took it and played around with it. And um, I kept asking myself, and again, this is what I would do if it was my photo. Um, Part of me, I like the way it's cropped so that there's like this surreal part and then the reality over here, you know, like the tree is real. And then this is more of a dream. But I wasn't sure. And I played around with cropping some of this out, and I could never quite get to where I felt it was any better, but it was just playing with options. One thing I did do is I took this figure out and I didn't miss him. I kind of,
Is it the one over here or this
oh, I'm
one?
sorry. There's, I keep forgetting you can't see my pointer on, I'm pointing to it. The person to the right, there's a person that looks like in a wheelchair.
Yes.
And I just didn't feel like he added to the image. This is the guy walking in the doorway is the subject. And, you know, I mean, to me, that's where I want my eye to go. And I just felt like that other person, and I'm not sure there was a story there between those two and that other person. And he's not really in the image. So I took him out and played with it and I liked it better. And then I tried doing some crops where I just had to, just the building and none of the blue, but I didn't like that. The one thing I did do though, I shifted the the um there's keystoning going on in an odd way. And again, I'm not saying this is bad, but it was something that I wanted. If it was my image, I'd want to try and adjust. So I tried to skew this up to where it was tilted the image just a little bit. It looks like it's falling off to the right to me, but again, that's just me. I'm not sure if that's a better thing or not.
Yeah, I kind of saw that too, and I wasn't. Yeah, I lined it up with the grid, and it seemed to line up okay. Do you think that that geometry tool in the Lightroom app would?
It might. You could try it and see what it does. Sometimes it does great things, and sometimes it just is wonky. But the
Okay.
other tool that could be useful is if you were to take it into Snapseed, there's a perspective tool in there.
Okay.
And they have these, one of the tools is it's like a, I don't know what they call it, but it's in perspective and it's like, it puts an icon in each corner of the image, and you can pull the icons and
Oh,
stretch the image in different ways. And that you could pull that corner up and you can play with it. And that's what I was playing with today. And that's where I got the most satisfying result.
okay. Okay.
So try it.
I will. Thank you.
Great image though. I love the color and the reflection and the silhouette. It all works. It's really fun.
Thank you. Thank you. I saw that those two people were standing together, or the one was they were together. And then the one on foot I saw walking towards that entryway, and I just waited until she was positioned where I wanted, where she was in the middle of that opening,
Yeah.
and I took the picture. And I would felt the same way about the person in the wheelchair. I left him in because they were together, and even though she's walking away from him, uh I was unsure about the story. I mean, I was there and saw the story, but
Right.
for a viewer to see the image, they're missing that part of the story.
Well, as one of my friends says, it's one right answer. There's there could be lots of right answers.
Right. Thank you, Rad.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, this one is called The Long Room by Val Shield.
Wow. Is this a pano also, or is this Are you there, Val?
No, it's not. It's actually an island, and we could only take mobile phones in, which was a bit of a. I've been playing with this one for a long time because there were a lot of people in front of me, and I've been trying to get them out of the image. And there's actually, if you have a look in the middle, there's somebody with a mobile phone in front of me. If you can see it, I've been trying to get rid of them for ages.
Oh, okay.
And I've actually done this with a calendar, but what I did, I just did a lineal gradient on the bottom and just wrote over it so I could hide them all. But I thought, well, this is one of my images that I've been playing with for a long time, and I just thought I'm just going to put it in and see what you think of it. I just love it. But
I like it too. I mean, it's really strong graphic lines, the leading lines of the this railing that goes all the way down to, to a vanishing point almost. I mean, and the color and the textures and the curved lines in the center. I mean, man, it's a engaging image. The one thing, and given the challenges that you have with the foreground that you're trying to deal with, I get it. You've done, I think, as probably as good as you could do. The one thing I would do when I look at this, I want to tilt it to the left. Again, if you look
okay.
at it's not quite, it's not level exactly. I don't know. I mean, I think it would benefit from just a slight shift of leveling the horizon. And I would call the horizon and I know you can't see my pointer. If you go, yeah, right down, if you go down there and that line right
Okay.
there and the line below it is leaning to the right. If you can just use that as your guideline and tilt the whole image just a little bit, that whole thing it's going to shift, and I think it's going to be an improvement. But
Okay.
awesome image.
Thank you. No, I've played with it so much. It's frustrated me. But I
I
hadn't thought
know
about
how
that
that
line
is.
down. I hadn't thought about that line down there. I've been trying everything else, but not that line.
Well, and again, that tool that I was just mentioning called Perspective and Snapseed, you can grab different corners and pull things around. I'm not saying you should do that, but the thing about that tool is it has a content aware component. So if you pull from an edge, it'll fill in what you've kind of pulled out, and sometimes that works great. Sometimes not so much. So I would try it.
Okay, Snapseed. I don't know whether we've got it in Australia or not.
I would think so. It's a free
Yeah.
app. Google makes it. I don't know. Try it. See,
Okay,
it
Snapseed
works on
on.
iPhone
Okay.
and Android both.
Okay, Snapseed. Okay, I'll have a go. Thank you, Rat.
I wonder if the content aware fill on the new one
Yeah,
on
I got rid of
Photoshop, I
something.
wonder if it would fix that.
Yeah, there's a head there. Don't worry, I had a big one over here. I had a big, sorry, a big one on the left-hand side, and I got rid of it too. But I was trying to do that with the lady with the mobile phone right up in front of me.
Is that
Which I
this right
didn't
here?
see.
Was that the phone?
No, the phone's in the middle. She had a bright blue screen, and I've
Oh,
dulled that down, and it's been so frustrating.
well, couldn't you, Rad, couldn't she in Lightroom Mobile make a mask right there and desaturate that blue? And so then that would just take care of that color cast.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
So what would you do? Use the color and desaturate? Okay.
Well, I'm trying to think. I mean, you could just use a brush, I think, and paint these areas in, and then desaturate the color so that it just blends in and becomes more the dark around it.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a thought.
Okay. 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 Okay.
All
Thanks
right.
very much. Got it. No, thanks.
All right, the next one is from Shelley Corliss, and this one is Red Tree.
This is another really fun image. This looks like very similar to one that we saw. Were you guys photographing together? It looks like the same location, maybe.
They're both
Yes,
Shelley.
Oh, it's the same person. Okay.
yes, this is the same. It's in my neighborhood, just down the street from my house.
What fun.
So
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great. So you used a similar technique where you blended images in Photoshop?
yes, I'm trying experimenting with a spring tree sort of project. So I'm taking pictures of blooming spring trees and trying this, technique.
Well, I like it. I like the way the sky is played out. I like the softness of the blur part is really wonderful. And then that you've got the tree that's clearer and sharper. And I mean, I'm not sure what I would do. I mean, this is a really picky thing. Over on the right, where the building is, there's a white line right on the edge. I'd probably darken that just because it pulls my eye out of the frame. You see what I'm talking about, Angela?
Yes.
Angel on the right there. Yeah. I would just
Uh-huh.
darken that. But other than that, I mean, I don't see a whole lot else that I would do necessarily.
And maybe while you're just this over there, it seems like this is blurred, but that is like a little sharper. But just to keep with your dreaminess, make sure that's included
Mhm.
in the blur.
Okay.
This is cool. I'm enjoying your spring tree series.
Yeah, me too.
Very nice.
Well, thank you.
All right.
And Pep Ventosa would be proud.
All right. This one is called Central Park Stroll by Sharon Garner.
This looks really good. For some reason, I didn't see this one before when I looked at the images earlier. This is native camera, Sharon?
Yes.
Did you zoom in on this or crop it in some way?
I cropped it in
Like
and
very
I
much or
no, just a little bit.
Okay.
I think I did crop in it on the bottom too.
okay. I just wondered. I wish I could see it bigger. And I can't. It's hard to tell. I love the composition. I like these lines. I can't tell. Do you think it's over sharpened or am I just seeing it? It's really hard to see the image, closer.
I don't remember what I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay. Well, I don't know either. Again, I hate to be critical when I can't see the
No,
image, but
it's
what I'm
fine.
seeing right now looks like it's just maybe a tad
Okay.
over sharpened, but it's a great image. I love the tree, the way that branch comes out over the scene. And then it kind of frames the scene, you know, the way the branch comes up on the right side and across the top. Um, and the lamp is in a perfect position. Very cool.
Okay. Thank you. I'll go back and take a look and see what I did, because I know I have the raw image too, because I always shoot
Okay,
raw.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
All right, this one is called Ghost Sunset by Shirley Day.
Hi, Shirley, are you there?
I
So,
am. I'm sorry, I was playing with my iPhone.
oh no, aren't we all? I like this image a lot. I'm again, this is a style thing, I'm sure. So it maybe I don't know. Did you use a filter like a filter? Or is that the actual color of the? I'm just curious.
No, I just shot this on my iPhone, and I wanted to show this to you because I want to know how I can improve on using the iPhone and shooting sunsets.
Well, shooting into the sun is always hard. So a couple of things that I mean, I think turned out well. If you look up at the top there, it looks a little. You see, there's a noise in the sky a little bit, and there's some like banding going on. Um, at least that's what I see on the screen here. Um, one of the things you can do when you're shooting into the sun like that, um, and you did a good job because none of this is really blown out here. But the idea with something like this is to expose for the highlights or the brighter parts of the image. So to do that, you would tap your finger on this. So if you're using the native camera, for example, you tap on this part of the screen, and when you tap on that bright area, it's going to give you a better exposure here. But this is going to get darker. You can't see my cursor. The rest of the images, the foreground is going to get darker, but that's okay because when you do processing either in Lightroom or Snapseed, you can lift those shadows. So the idea is to expose for the bright areas, and you've done that, I think. The other thing that you can do in processing with the clouds in the sky, where it looks to me like there's a little noise going on there, in Snap or in Lightroom, you could use the noise slider in the details tool in Lightroom, or if you're in Snapseed, you do a negative structure adjustment, and it will smooth out the sky up here in the top a little bit, and take some of that noise away. And then using the masking tool, you would just paint that smooth structure in the top in the sky. And you might be able to bring out a little more detail in the foreground. And then the only other thing I might consider doing, there's a lot of gravel road in the foreground that I don't think adds to the image, and I would consider a more panoramic crop. Yeah, maybe across there to eliminate some of that foreground, and you'd have a more dramatic image with that sky being the main attraction.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm excited to use Snapseed in a different way. I've only used it for artistic stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a great editor. I mean, there's a lot of good things you can do with it.
yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Rad.
You're welcome.
All right, so the next one is our open category, and we just have 4 images here. And these are images that were probably not shot on mobile, and it's anything goes as far as subjects. So the first one here is Under the Ice by Stan Wheeler.
Holy cow. I'm trying to see what I'm looking at. Is that like a cave or oh, it's a thaw. You're underneath well, it's very cool, whatever it is. My only thoughts on it, I mean, I like the composition. I think it's a very interesting and engaging photo in that way. When you're processing, if it's a raw file, you've got some areas in here. You can't see my cursor. I'm sorry. The vertical piece, Yeah, in there. There's some hot spots. If it's a raw file down in there, and then over in the very center of the image, um, up in there, there's some hot areas. If it's a raw file, I would see if you can pull some detail out of those, or at least tone them down a little bit. But I'm guessing if it's a raw file, you may have the data to work with. But other than that, what is this? Is the
I don't
photographer
know if Stan is here. He's usually here. Oh, I guess he's not. He's not
okay?
on tonight.
I'm curious to know what it is. It's a really interesting photo. I'm not sure but yeah, those are the things
Yeah,
that I would do.
it's kind of an interesting space. You can tell the ice is thick up here. It looks like he got down really low,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's hard to tell how big that is.
yeah.
Okay, so going to the next one. This one is called The Love Bite by Michael McCoy.
Wow, this is fun. Are these is this in France? The horses, what are they called?
I think
Well, I
Michael
don't,
is here.
I'm just curious. A lot great action shot. I mean, I love that you got their hooves up in the air, the water splashing around, the bit of reflection in the foreground. There's a lot of movement. Um, I mean, it looks pretty good. Again, it's hard to see these really well on the over the internet, but it looks pretty good. I just say watch your hot spots. I can't tell if there's some hot areas on the horse's face. If the data is there, you may be able to pull in some of the detail there. But otherwise, I mean, I think it looks good. Um,
I'm,
and
I was muted.
oh, hi.
Hi.
Where did you make this photo?
So the horse is Cameroon.
I thought that's what it was. Yeah, okay.
He was at a Peterson's workshop, and he arranged to have some horse shirts as and while shooting away with the 100 lens,
Okay.
and got this one. And this interesting afterwards, this horse it actually bit the horse, and then the other one was bleeding.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they can be pretty
Yeah,
vicious.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I like the shot. The more I look at it right now too, and again, this is me being really picky, but it looks to me like it needs to be leveled a little bit. I think it's leaning to the right. Your horizon in the back, if you look at that, and I know it's an awkward horizon, so it could just be me, but I would want to tilt the whole image just a little bit to the left.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Great action shot, Michael. Okay, the next one is Starlit Tree Bones by Stan Wheeler.
Hey, Stan, are you there?
I think Stan's not here tonight.
Okay. I'm curious to know if he did this with a big camera and those are actually stars. And I'm wondering if he did light painting a little bit on this tree to get the light branch that's coming out to the left. And I'm just curious more than anything. I love these trees. It looks like a bristlecone pine or something from the Sierra, but um, I'm not sure that I mean, I look at the tree itself, and again, I just can't tell in looking at the image if it's as sharp as I would like, but I'd wonder if the limbs that go off to the left look like they're illuminated in a way that's um I'd like to see them more along the same tone as the trunk of the tree, but I can't tell if that's was intentional in terms of a light painting effect or what's happening there. I wish he was here to talk to us about it.
Yeah, me too. So I don't have any insight on this image to share, but maybe just, I know how difficult it is when you're light painting to get a subtle effect.
Yeah.
So, maybe just like a little less time with the light if you're doing like, like a flashlight or something, and also just making it a little bit softer by either stepping back, dimming the light, or putting some sort of diffuser over it. So it's just a quick thing to illuminate the foreground, and then it's not so hot, because it is kind of hard to dial it down later to make it match
Mm-hmm.
like other parts that didn't get as much light when you're doing the light painting. It's really hard to get it even. All right, so moving on to the next one, which is our last one, and this one is called Sun Over Kenya by Michael McCoy.
Wow, Michael, that's beautiful. I, I love the colors. I love the silhouette, the cloud across the sun. Um, so are you there tonight?
Yes, I'm saying, yeah.
What did you shoot this with?
The Fuji
Lo-
and and I forget, I must have had my 100 to 400 on because we were there for wildlife. But every
It looks
morning and every evening we went out looking for sunrise and sunset.
it looks like a long lens. That's why I asked. I was thinking maybe the 400 too. Yeah. Um, I mean, I don't know. If it were my image, I'm looking at the way the sun is, and I mean, it's very hot, and I know you're shooting right in the sun, so it is hot, but I don't know if that, um, when I look at the cloud that's running through the sun, it looks like, I don't know if that's a processing thing or if that's actually the way and again, you can't see my cursor. Sorry. I'm pointing at the cloud in the sun there. It looks
That
a
was
little,
there.
yeah, it looks a little like it's been lightened or something, or maybe, I don't know. I'd like to see that cloud closer to the same consistency across, but maybe it just wouldn't be that way. I don't know. And with the sun shining through it, I mean, that's the way it works. But the sun looks really hot to me. Um,
Okay.
I don't know if that's really valid criticism or a comment there, because I'm not sure what I would do with this. Um, but I mean, it looks too like when I look at the tree and the tops of the little parts, the little branches, I just wonder if it's possibly over sharpened. Um, but it's, again, I'm looking at an image. It's hard to zoom in and you see more of it. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's gorgeous in terms of the colors and the silhouette of the tree, clouds at the top. I want to go there.
Yeah. It was really neat.
I bet. I bet.
Very cool. So, as a landscape photographer, I just see something on here, but it's like so easy to fix this. Is right here where um the dark meets the very light lights, you get a little bit of a red line here. So that's chromatic aberration. You can get rid of that really
Oh, okay.
easily in Lightroom or in Photoshop. I have the Pro panel, uh, that works. There's like a button for the chromatic aberration that you just like brush over, it takes it away right away. So if you have that, use that tool. It's like so easy. And then if you wanted to paint over the sun and make it yellow, you could do that to soften it. Like what Rad said, it's really bright. So I think even if you painted that and you made it like yellow or gold or something, it would still seem like the feeling of this image, which is, I mean, it just feels like you're in a really hot place, and it gives a sense of place, um, with the temperature of this image. And I think you showed that really well, and the silhouette is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So if that supports your vision, that would be two ways that you could go about doing that.
I went to Kenya and then almost all of, because of the it had ISO had to be pretty high, and the footage is not really nice ISO. So it had a lot of noise, and I saw pictures in photo AI. I had just come out. When I saw most of my pictures, I thought they were all garbage because I couldn't use them. And when I looked up photo AI and put pictures in, hooray! I can use them now. So, and I'm sure I put that one through photo AI also, so it may have oversharpened it. I'm not sure. I didn't do a lot of other processing though, if I recall correctly.
Huh.
I was
Well,
surprised the
it's a
way it
cool
came
image.
out. So nice.
It's really good. Thank you for submitting. I think this is your first time submitting to the club,
Yeah.
Michael.
Yes.
Nice job. All right. Well, that was our member submitted images for tonight. Rad, thank you so much for participating in this
Thank you.
process. Hopefully it was relatively painless. I know it's not easy always to look at someone else's image and, figure out what their vision is and how you can support them. And you guys, it's always, I know it's not easy sometimes to submit the images and to ask for feedback. So thank you to everyone who is brave enough to participate in that process. And kudos to you, because that just makes you stronger as an artist. So, and really enjoyable for the rest of us to get to see your beautiful work. So thank you everybody so much for being here. Rad, thank you so much for a fantastic presentation. I know we all learned a lot, and I'm super happy that we have the recording, because I know we're all going to want to go back and go through the settings and what was he doing here? What was he doing there? So good thing we have the recording on that, because you always give us so much great information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
And we'll
Um,
see you guys back at base camp on April 23rd. I believe that is the date. We're going to welcome photographer Nick Stover. He's going to be doing a presentation on light. And of course, I will be sending out more information via email. And you guys look for the recording of this with the slides tomorrow. All
Thank
right, everybody. Hope you have a
Bye.
fantastic evening. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Super
Thanks
Thanks
great.
for
again,
having me,
Rod.
guys. Take care. Good night,
Bye.
Sharon.
Take care.
Night, Red.
Good
Good
night,
night,
you
John
guys.
Boy.
Good night, Elizabeth.